so nice to see people in the front row. It's almost like you were encouraged to sit in the front. Thank you. Oh, well, thank you, Luke. That was an excellent idea. Front and center, by the way. Good evening, everyone. I call the Tuesday, November 7th, 2023 Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to take just a little bit of creative license with the agenda tonight. Tanya, don't freak out. But I want to say that all of our students this week across all schools will be recognizing and celebrating veterans through assemblies and activities in their classrooms. And these assemblies are among my favorite that we share with the community throughout the whole year. So if you are able, I highly encourage you to attend one. They are fantastic. So I just want to take a moment tonight to recognize and honor those among our staff here in the Peninsula School District and who live within our community who have served in the military. So if you have served in the military, would you please stand so that we may say thank you. To our CFO, Ashley Murphy, and our fellow board directors, Jennifer Butler and David Olson, on behalf of the rest of the board and the district, it is my honor to recognize you and thank you for your service. You all possess an uncommon commitment to service, and we're proud to work alongside you, and we thank you for your service, your leadership, and for the exemplary role that you play in the lives of our students. So thank you. Okay, and now we can get started with the approval of the agenda. Prior to the agenda vote this evening, I would like to pull an item from the consent agenda. We are reviewing our policies surrounding ASB and charitable contributions. So this evening we are going to pull item 5.5, which is a club approval. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the amended agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried and the agenda is approved. Okay, so we are going to roll on to comments from the community. So pursuant to Board Policy 1400, we are pleased to offer an opportunity for members of the community to address the board. The board will not engage in dialogue or respond to public comment. Board silence during public comment does not signal either approval of or disagreement with statements. Consistent with our commitment to maintaining a respectful and productive atmosphere, we remind everyone that comments may not be libelous, slanderous, or abusive in nature. The board president will terminate an individual statement when the allotted time has passed and may interrupt a speaker to require the same standard of civility that the board imposes upon itself. Each speaker will be given up to 3 minutes for comments, but the board may further limit speaking time if necessary. Speakers may not concede their time to others, and we ask for your cooperation in this regard as we aim to set an example for our students in the community. When I call your name, please come to the podium and state your first and last name, and then we will have a timer on display as well so you can keep track of your time. So first up this evening we have Chris Doherty. Chris Doherty. Chris.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Chris Doherty and I'm a parent of 2 students in PSD. After the last school board meeting, I visited WASDA to review the 2020 curriculum policy and procedures, and it does appear that equitable, diverse, and inclusive vocabulary have been removed by WASDA from the course design selection and adoption of instructional materials. How is PSD going to reaffirm their commitment to providing an equitable, diverse, and inclusive education when you have a board member, David Olson, who is speaking at the Pacific Research Institute conference and is listed on their site as being from the Peninsula School District? If you're unfamiliar with PRI, they are a group that continually pushes their bias and is supported by Moms for Liberty, conservative women of Washington, and Republican politicians. PRI personnel have a record of speaking at events hosted by the American Freedom Alliance, which is designated by Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group. David Olson is not only attending, but is speaking at this conference. The conference will discuss a training program on how to run for school boards around the country and improve public education. However, they neglected to say that their improvement is based on a curriculum that promotes censorship and bigotry. Here's the agenda of the groups this board member keeps company with: censorship of U.S. history, book banning, and LGBTQ bigotry. What we should be focusing on is ensuring our students on the KP are being offered and provided the same educational opportunities as those in Gig Harbor, providing Promethean boards to all teachers and students and schools in our district if they so desire to use them. The school board is a nonpartisan entity that should represent all students in the community, regardless of their race, gender, or sexual identity. They should be educating and preparing our students to be responsible citizens. However, when you have school board members like David Olson, who continually engage with Moms for Liberty representatives and speak at partisan political events, you have a school board member who is not representing all students in our community and using his position on the school board to promote his own political status and agenda. Thank you.
Next up, we have Christy Wahala.
Good evening, guys. Just want to follow up on that. I would like to express my concerns about school board members engaging with special interest groups in a professional capacity when school board members are supposed to be nonpartisan representatives of our community and our students. David Olson is scheduled to speak at an unsanctioned school board conference in Bellevue on November 15th, just one day before the annual WASDA conference. This conference is organized by Pacific Research Institute, a known conservative think tank, which is primarily supported by special interest groups such as Donors Trust, Cook Brothers Foundation, Moms for Liberty, and many other politically motivated organizations. If this were a private event and he were speaking as a private citizen, I would not have issue with it. I have no problem with people having diverse and differing personal political views. I do, however, feel it is inappropriate and damaging to act out those views when representing the Peninsula School Board in an official capacity. Mr. Olson is being promoted on the event website as a representative of Peninsula School District. WASDA has strict guidelines for those who are selected to represent school districts in this state. Some of WASDA standards for individual school directors that I feel are not being met are modeling high ethical standards, meeting expectations for transparency, including disclosing potential conflicts of interest and refraining from discussing or voting on those issues, and respect and abide by board decisions. I do not believe that it is appropriate for school board members to disregard district policy when it does not suit them, leverage their position for appearances at political events, hold private meetings with extremist groups to discuss school district matters, or represent our school district at unsanctioned events such as this upcoming PRI conference. I ask that you please ensure that each board member is upholding these standards and maintaining a nonpartisan approach to the governance of our school district as you were each elected to do. Thank you.
Next up, we have Aria Messer.
Hi, my name is Aria Messer. I have 2 children in the Peninsula School District and 2 LGBTQ plus kids. I recently sent a survey to students ages 13 through 18 and 120-year-old through the Pride Gig Harbor community group to anonymously complete if they wished. I want to share some of the responses to give voice to what the LGBTQ plus students are actually thinking and feeling, and not what the adults who may or may not know them assume. When asked, "Do you feel safe in your community?" one said, "I do not feel very safe because I get bullied. I get things thrown at me and called slurs and just generally harassed, especially at school." Another said, "Sometimes I do, but it would be better if some people could try not to push their religion on me or my friends." Another, "No, I just want more people to be educated on what it means to be LGBTQIA+. When asked, "Do you feel safe at your school?" one said, "No. I wish the school did stuff when kids get bullied. When I report anyone, not much happens." Another, "I do not feel safe at all. I don't know what anyone would be able to do about it." Another, "Ha ha, no. I get called slurs daily." When asked, "What do you want older generations to understand about you?" one said, "Just because we are young does not make us dumb. Yes, we can be arrogant and ignorant, but so can you. All humans are capable of learning, growing, and evolving. That's what makes us human. I want to be a person that you can have a no judgment conversation with. You just need to let us in and be tolerant enough to listen." Another, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it's wrong. You don't have to like or agree with someone or something just to be kind. Another, there is no agenda to queerness and transness. No one is playing a part in some sort of scheme. People have always been queer, they've always been trans, now there are just more spaces to talk about it, and more resources for people to put toward words and how they are feeling. Another, that if you go by they, them pronouns, that doesn't mean you're mentally ill. Another, we're not a trend. As the Peninsula School District claims in the overarching hashtag Every Child Every Day, I just wanted you to know what some of them are saying about what they experience every day. I hope your vision to inspire and empower every child, your mission to have a culture of belonging while preparing them for the future, and your values that every child deserves support on their own unique journey to excellence will apply to the LGBTQ+ kids every day, too. Thank you.
And finally, we have Carol Rivera.
Good evening, Carol Rivera, Peninsula Education Association President. I wanted to just recognize and thank the board for putting the draft policy 5515 on the agenda for consideration. This is something that is a passion and concern of me personally and a lot of the educators I know. The policy specifically is to workforce secondary traumatic stress, but overall that has lasting impacts on the health and well-being of our educators for what they work with students and many of the things that the public doesn't see that we handle on a daily basis. To that end, I look forward to working with the district and establishing the committee to really take a larger holistic view about educator and staff well-being. And one of the ways tonight I would like to make a request that you could help with that is by considering raising the substitute rates for our guest educators. Currently, a daily sub rate in Peninsula School District is $150. It's about $20 an hour on a 7.5-hour day. If you drive anywhere on the Kitsap Peninsula along Highway 16 and down to Tacoma in that area, people are making upwards of 200 to 210, even more a day. With that amount, you can see that I could, if I were a sub, I could go to another district and make $250 a week more, $1,000 a month more. So if we are serious about reducing burnout and care and concern for our educators, we need to make a change to the pay that we provide our guest teachers, because they are essential for us to do our work. It also potentially could have some cost-saving benefits because when my educators have to give up their planning period, it costs the districts about $230 for 6 hours of work. So if you look at that, you're already paying, especially in the secondary and our elementary specialists, hours and hours of coverage because we don't have enough substitutes, and it does come down to how much we pay them. So we just want you to invest in our schools, help our staff. You know, when people come to me and say, I haven't gotten a planning period in a week and a half, or I'm the only one that has third period plan, or whatever it is, we are retaxing and hurting their ability to be present for our students. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 5 is the consent agenda. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve.
Is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved by Chuck and seconded by Jennifer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried and the consent agenda has been approved. Okay, item 6 this evening. We are pleased to have so many of our administrators and school teams with us here this evening. So we will start with our secondary improvement plans. And I think Assistant Superintendent Dan Gregory is going to get things started for us.
Yes, thank you, Board President Wimberly and the rest of the board and Superintendent Barr. Thank you for having us this evening. We are so happy to be here. And before I get started, principals, come on up. Don't wait. And yes, thank you, and James Cantonwine also. So we are so pleased to be in front of you this evening to present our school improvement plans. With 7 schools, we are going to have the 7 building principals talk to you and talk through those plans about the different things that are in common within those school plans, and then each of them will also speak to the uniqueness of each plan. Their assistant principals are here for support, be it moral support or during the questioning period. We may call upon them to shed some light on some things as well. What I'd like to do to start the evening off is to have each of these people introduce themselves and what school they represent. And then when they are done, we'll finish with James because he's going to take the next 2 slides. So here are your secondary principals.
Good evening. I'm Ty Roebuck. I'm the principal at Goodman Middle School.
Mike Benoit, Peninsula High School.
Brian Tovey, Henderson Bay High School.
Michelle Suter, Gig Harbor High School.
I'm Luke Grunberg, KPMS.
Brian Wickens, Harbor Ridge Middle School, home of the Falcons.
I'm Kelsey Park. I am the principal at Kopachek Middle School.
And I'm James Cantonwine. So as you remember from our elementary school improvement plan presentations, our template here that we're using is based on OSPI's has the OSSI, the Office of School and System Improvement, and they have a template that they suggest for all of our schools that are kind of targeted across the state for any form of improvement. That's something that the state kind of forces this template on them. This is actually a great template. It's founded on principles of improvement science, and so we're having all of our schools write their school improvement plans to this template. As an aside, I'll tell you that I had a call with a vendor who was wanting to sell us on some data visualizations. And when I sounded uninterested, they suddenly the CEO of the company came on the call and said, wanted to know, is the strategic plan dashboard that we have correct and up to date? And I said, yeah, it was just in there the day before that, incidentally. He said that across this nation, this is among the very few districts that he's seen that actually put data out there live tied to a strategic plan. He was really excited about that. And then I said, have you seen our school improvement plans? And as he was going through that, he wanted to point out that he has never seen that done anywhere in the country right now, and then acknowledged that Peninsula School District was going to be a district website that he was going to direct other districts to look at in terms of that transparency around school improvement planning. So I was really excited to hear that. I know Chris's team, he's got a great data analyst, Mason. Love him. He's done some great work on that I know I wasn't clever enough to figure out how to display. So I want to make sure that we acknowledge his part in kind of displaying this to the community. Each of our schools has 3 or 4 goals depending on whether they're a middle school or a high school. Those are around belonging, language arts, math, and then graduation. So those are all tied to the strategic plan. And then all of our schools, just like in elementary, are engaged in continuous improvement cycles. These are typically 6 weeks. You'll see some of them as you're looking at the plans that might be as short as 5, might extend out to, say, 8 weeks. And then those activities, measures, time frame, the person that's leading, and the resources, those are going to be unique to each of the schools, and they're going to be set by the principal working with the building leadership team and their other staff members. So some consistency around that formatting. As we're going to go through each goal, we're going to have principals kind of step up and talk about some things that are in common across all of our buildings, and then we'll jump into the more specific part at the end. Yeah, so we've got, all right, you ready? Okay.
All right, so Brian and I get the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about the language arts section of it. And so really quickly, as you're reading through this, and we know you have this, but they shared the SBA data from 2022.
The
the SBA data from 2023. And so when you're looking at this, what we're looking at and what you see in the school improvement plans is if we're going to get to 2026 100%, this is the growth that we have to make. And so you're seeing trend data over time, and then this is the growth area for each of the schools. All right. Click. There we go.
I don't know how to use the mic. One of the things that all schools are doing in ELA and other areas is this is our second year focused on universal design for learning. The big three that we identified 2 years ago, clear learning targets, collaboration in the community, and multiple methods for students to participate in that. So as administrators, we do that. Excuse me, we monitor that through walkthroughs. Last week, our entire admin team broke out into groups, went to 4 different schools, 2 groups at each school, to observe these things in action. So that's one of the strategies that we're using, Target ELA.
Good job.
Thank you.
It also gives us an opportunity to calibrate when we're looking at implementation of the 3, specifically with learning targets was one of our focus for the 2 times that we did that. So we had an opportunity to see those in action, see where they were if as we're moving along that curriculum line, how we're implementing each building. The next one that we're also looking at is we use reading diagnostics at the secondary level. For middle schools, we're using iReady. And then at the secondary, they're using some of the different pieces. Zinc is used out of some of the curriculum. And so with iReady, we do that 3 times a year. It's a fall, winter, spring. So we just finished that up. We've been looking at using that to do diagnostics. And so as we look at like goal setting, and then we're putting that into classrooms, we're going to be talking a little bit about that when we talk about what's unique to our schools. But you'll also hear a trend of how we use that data specifically in real time to show growth in our students. And so if iReady specifically is calibrated to the SBA, so we know as students are moving through that if they're doing well, if we're meeting their needs and we're kind of helping them grow, we should see a connection to the SBA scores. Right? On to math.
Clicker. There we go. Hey, James used the word alignment. So there's not a lot to go over on this slide. You can very clearly see the same type of scenario playing out. Different word, math. But again, we're looking at the same idea, taking where we are, looking at, hey, if we're going to get to 100%, well, what do we need to do every year till 2026? So that's what you can see again from the A to the B pieces there. And then Kelsey and Mike are going to kind of walk us through, similar to what Ty shared, the activities and strategies that we're using kind of aligned at the secondary level before we go into the building pieces.
Thank you, Luke.
You're very welcome.
So at the middle, we have a lot of fun together. If you can't tell, we really like working together, which helps with our collaboration and alignment. In the middle level with math, you will see something really common on here, which again is our UDL Big 3. So one of the drop downs in that our focus down area in these first couple cycles is learning targets, and really making sure that those are present across buildings. That was something that we agreed on in the summer that we're really focusing on. And using building walkthrough forms, not just the walkthrough that was referenced that we did as a whole team, which included elementary and secondary levels, but walkthrough forms within our buildings. And then again with math, it was referenced that we use iReady as a kind of benchmark diagnostic to get us to where our SBA is, but we're also looking at our new math curriculum that was rolled out this year, really focusing on implementing that with fidelity and making sure that there's a curriculum alignment and pacing that happens within the framework so that teachers across the district are leaning on each other and in common pacing. Mike is going to talk about the high school level.
Well, all of that also applies to the high school level. In addition, I would just mention that we have already given some intern-based assessments through the Smarter Balance in both language arts and math. In particular, speaking about math, it really shine the light on a couple things we need to focus on, like system of equations and inequalities. And our math team is building goals around focusing in those areas and making sure to weave smarter balance type question stems on all their unit assessments throughout the year. Excuse me. Also, I had the privilege on the October 9th, the day we had off of, or the students had off, we were on, teachers were on, and we gathered at Gig Harbor High School, and Brian Tovey and I were working with the math group. So we had math teachers from all 3 high schools there together with a particular focus on algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. And there is a shared drive amongst all the secondary math teachers that they have access to, and we spent our day looking at that and updating our curriculum frameworks and aligning our assessments and having discussions about adjusting our pacing charts based on what we've learned the last couple of years about what in algebra, for example, they realized there was an important unit at the end of the year that was really hard to get to before the test is given, so they adjusted the pacing chart accordingly, and that's kind of work that's being done, and we'll continue to do it throughout the year through when we have opportunities like we did the 9th, but also just through our weekly collaboration. So.
I think James is back.
That's okay. I can. It's grad rates and it's James.
Come on back here with me.
Your time will come.
So graduation is one of the most exciting times of the year for us. And so I'm going to make sure that our principals have the chance to talk about the unique things that they're doing around graduation goals. If you notice, those are pretty small growth goals. We're really at the point at our 3 high schools where continued growth is going to be hard, right? Because each of those, the grad rate for each school this last year represented a record high for that school. The district as a whole is also, understandably, hit its record high graduation rate. That's really exciting. I'm going to avoid talking about the exciting stuff and let the principals talk about that as they're up, and I'll instead focus on some boring details, but important pieces that are going to help us get those last percentage points. One of the things that we need to continue doing better, we're doing better and we're going to keep doing better, is tracking down those students who are what the state calls unconfirmed transfers. So the family tells us that they're moving away and they're going to school in Idaho. And then if we don't hear from the school in Idaho or get some sort of registration information that's been kind of completed by that school and acknowledged and sent from the family, we have to count that student as an unconfirmed transfer. And from the state's perspective, that student is a dropout. If we can't confirm that they definitively enrolled somewhere else, then they're counting in that. And so that's kind of what I mean about it's the boring part, right? It's not the exciting part about supporting a student getting across the milestone of graduation. Many of those students who are, their family is moving or something like that, they're not necessarily at risk of not graduating, and yet if we aren't able to find them, then they end up counting as dropouts. And so we're continuing to do a better job of confirming those unconfirmed transfers, and there's still room to grow as we're looking to try to get those last few percentage points to make sure that we get to 100% by 2026. And now we've got learning environment.
So we're super excited to share about learning environment. We know that this sense of belonging is something that that research shows that when students have a sense of belonging, when they know that they're cared for, loved, and valued, that they're going to be more successful academically. So while this is maybe a little touchy-feely on that side of it, we know that it's super important for kids to have success in classrooms when we focus on this sense of belonging. So you can see this, once again, the rates go up based on getting 100% to meet our goal. We just took the panorama today. So we're right at the end of here. So yeah, we're just drum roll. I have no idea where we are. Okay. And then here are some things though that we work on when it comes to it comes to SEL or sense of belonging, is we have partnered with Character Strong. And Character Strong is, if you guys haven't Googled this or looked into it or anything like that, it is a phenomenal group that just gives
so much to schools around our area and actually around the nation. They bring in leadership lessons, they bring in lessons around sense of belonging, and they do multi-tiered systems of support. We've had multiple staff members go and attend that, and it's just been a great partnership for us. We use a lot of these lessons in our homeroom or WIN or pack time, or is it WIN time?
What's that?
What's your homeroom
Prime
time?
time.
Prime time?
Prime time.
Prime time, I like that. Or in prime time, we use these lessons in those to just create a community and a sense of belonging for all of our students.
The other thing that we do across the secondary level is 4 at the door plus 1 more, and that's ways through Character Strong that all of our staff meet kids at the door, and the 4 at the door is eye to eye, name to name, hand to hand, or heart to heart. And the plus 1 more is giving a student an entry task as they walk into the classroom, so there's something that they're working on, whether it's previous learning or something, to get their mind focused onto that subject area. So.
There you go. That's it. Now you're up, Dan.
Nope, James again.
James again. All right.
All right, so science. So not directly part of school improvement plans, but certainly an important part of state accountability. If you're wondering, why is the science test only given once per level, grade 5, 8, and 11? It's because that's all the federal government requires, and then that's all the state funds. So that WCAS or WACAS, you'll hear it said different ways, the Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science, it's a fantastic test. If you look at like the practice and training tests that are available to the public, they're the kinds of things that we would want students to be able to do when they leave our system. So to that end, it's really a fantastic test. I'm a big fan of our current set of science standards. They're very aspirational, and yet that assessment doesn't really give us the kind of information that we would need in order to improve. It's really an accountability measure, and so what schools end up getting from that, it's pretty hard for them to look at that and figure out where they should improve science instruction. So it's fairly limited in that way. One of the things that we really need to kind of think about, especially as we're looking at high school scores in science, is that there are 0 carrots or sticks tied to that assessment. So doing well on that assessment really doesn't get the student anything, and doing poorly on it or not taking it at all really doesn't do the student anything either. At no point in Washington state history have we actually held students to needing to pass the science assessment. There was 1 year where the state waited till the very end of June to make that decision, and we would have had some students that didn't walk because of the biology assessment. And then the state kind of rolled that back, in part because what it was looking like is we had students that weren't graduating because of a biology assessment, but in reality, because that test wasn't available to be translated, we don't know if we had students who actually were, say, new to the country, and we were saying it was a science problem, but it was actually they couldn't access the test. The state didn't have resources to translate the test at that time, and so that's why they kind of walked back on that. And so with our current test, there's never been any sort of carrots or sticks tied to it. So we continue to need more assistance from kind of the community about getting students and families to want to take that test and to want to take it seriously, because our participation rates are very low. This is pretty common across the state. If you're looking at OSPI, when they designate schools for achievement to recognize, one of their requirements is that the school has to have met the 95% participation rate on every assessment in order to be recognized for something great happening for academic excellence. There's virtually no high school in the state that actually achieves that participation rate of 95%, and it's because of the science test. Kids are savvy and they figure out that that one doesn't count.
Thank you, James and team. I would just add to James' comment, if you remember, we had this discussion earlier, and all of our student reps all said, yeah, we did that. We have wonderful kids, and they make us happy sometimes because they do participate, but we still need to increase that participation rate. Before I go to the last slide, we talked about them a little bit, but I just want to take a second and honor our assistant principals here as well, because they do wonderful work in supporting the principals. they do have fun, and they all have fun, and they work hard. So I just wanted to recognize them here tonight. On the last slide, we are better together. We do collaborate more, including our assistant principals, and we are becoming more aligned. We're becoming more aligned with the strategic plan. What you just saw were standardized goals set as a part of the SIP plan to get us to 100% by the end of our strategic plan. And so that was very purposeful. We have consistent SIP goals. You heard a lot of commonalities in terms of the UDL work, in terms of some of the assessments that we're using, and we'll continue to circle back to that on a building by building basis, but also on a level by level basis around commonality. We have common ways of collecting data, very classroom focused, analyzing data and developing common strategies to respond to data. When you heard the principals talk about walkthroughs and UDL work, a lot of what we've done during this first 6 weeks and even into the second cycle has really been around adult behavior. No significant change in student outcomes will occur unless we have changes in adult practice. And sometimes those aren't huge changes. Those little changes make a difference. So as we continue to work on that, and I heard aligned practices and things like that from your principals, the more we can talk about what we're seeing, the more consistent we're going to get with what practices are making changes. But each school is also unique. You also heard the term improvement science, and we have taken a more scientific approach, but there also is an art to it. And now each principal is going to come up and talk about the uniqueness of their building, about how they leverage the skill set of the teachers in their building, and we have wonderful teachers with great skill sets, how they work as leaders to leverage those skill sets to serve their student population within their building. So this is an opportunity, and they have 5 minutes each to share some of that uniqueness with you. And I believe we're going to start with Luke, if I remember correctly. Here he is, ready to go.
I had to write this out, or this could have been 25 minutes. So, yeah, I know. I practiced. Hey, I wanted to let you know our mission at KPMS. We worked on this this summer, and as a staff, put this together. Our mission is to nurture growth, curiosity, and collaboration in all students, while embracing diversity, fostering passion, and developing inclusive community connections. We believe that all students, that's in all caps, can learn and grow at high levels. Using our multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, we are focusing on closing the achievement gap and giving all students access to instruction toward grade level standard. Intentionally using data to drive support and intervention, and progress monitoring the effects of those interventions. At the Tier 1 level, what we provide for all of our students, we're focusing on implementation of the UDL, Universal Design for Learning Big 3, to close the achievement gap and support all students in reaching proficiency towards standards in reading and math. The UDL Big 3 are centered on clear learning objectives, collaboration and community, and flexible methods. We believe that centering and aligning instruction to clear learning objectives and connecting learning to these throughout instruction, that students will improve their mastery of and engagement in grade level learning standards. We believe that developing a collaborative and safe classroom environment where students' voices contribute to learning, are valued and celebrated, is crucial to engagement. This will foster an appetite for student ownership of learning and support of the school community as a whole. We believe that flexibility and student choice have an impact on students engaging and taking ownership of their learning. By offering choice on how students access their learning and show mastery of grade level standard, students will be more willing to engage and feel supported in exhibiting their understanding in creative ways that support their interests and learning styles. So we've braided our UDL work into our initiatives and programs in support of closing the achievement gap. So first, we developed a master schedule that includes co-taught ELA and math classes at each grade level. Most of these are supported with a general education and special education teacher. This model supports all students having access to grade level standard instruction and support in areas of challenge or that directly relate to their IEP goals. Second, KPMS is an AVID school, advancement via individual determination, and uses the AVID system to drive support for all students connected to writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. Wicker. All content areas drive instruction around these Wicker strategies, and we emphasize many of the organizational strategies that middle school students need during Cougar Academy every Tuesday. Students also use this time to check grades, develop goals, organize binders, and plan for the week. Thirdly, our student support team meets every other week to connect students that are not responding to Tier 1 instruction based on data and teacher referral. We look at screening assessments, grades, behavior data to connect students to Tier 2 academic and behavioral intervention. We've implemented Cougar Catch-Up as one form of academic intervention with 2 of our amazing math teachers after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We had 30 kids show up today, which was awesome. Continue to grow that. Our student support team is reaching out directly to connect with families in need of this academic intervention and being very thoughtful in, again, getting our students to come after school, which can be a challenge. To measure the effectiveness of our work and intervention, our math and ELA teams are using the Team Analysis of Common Assessments, TACA system, to identify the learning gaps of students and to collaborate together to provide classroom-based intervention to meet the needs of students based on common assessment data. I am absolutely proud of the work we are doing, the team that we have in place, and love the big goal we have in front of us, as you got to see. It aligns with our KPMS mission to nurture growth, curiosity, and collaboration in all students while embracing diversity, fostering passion, and developing inclusive community connections, along with the district vision of inspiring and empowering every child, every day. Go Cougs.
Wow, how do you follow that? Nice job, Luke. I'm Brian Wickinson. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be here and to have the opportunity to co-lead with my assistant, Scott Yangling, Harbor Ridge. I'm very proud to be there. Dan said that we should bring a 3x5 card, and I thought he meant 3 feet by 5 feet. So I guess it was smaller than that. So I have some notes, but we'll make it fast. I've got a timekeeper. What makes Harbor Ridge unique? I would say, first of all, is the people. We've got an incredible staff. We talk about every child every day, and I truly believe that that's what we're about. People pitch in, they do what they're, whatever needs to be done, and anything that they feel that we can do to better support kids, they're totally up for that. We pride ourselves in our communication, the communication that we give with families, with students and staff. That's a very big ask for us, and we know we're not always going to get it right, but that is our goal. Shared leadership is a big thing that we believe in, and that's not only for our BLT members, but also anytime a staff member has an idea that's innovative that they think can move the needle on student achievement, we're there to support and give it a shot and find out what we can do to make that happen. We have awesome kids. The kids that come to us are great. The elementary schools do a nice job of getting them ready to come to middle school, and then we try to get them psyched up so they can go on to the high school and do great things there. Very supportive families. We're very fortunate to have the families that we have, and just can't thank them enough for reaching out and partnering with us. We're totally in it together, and we appreciate that. So I'm going to move right on to math. Math, as everybody's been talking about UDL, we're doing the same exact thing, like so you know about that. But as we've done our walkthroughs, we've seen that we're much more aligned with our objectives, with teachers posting objectives and then referring back to those objectives during the lesson, students being able to articulate those objectives. So that's been a real grow for us. Flexible methods we're coming along with there, and just the amount of discourse that students are having in the classes, we're hearing more student voice and less teacher voice, and that's really the goal that we have. So our math team got together at the beginning of the year, and they decided that if we really want to move the needle, maybe what we need to do is change instruction. So they looked into the book. One of our staff members had been reading the book Building Thinking Classrooms. So they decided as a team that they would adopt that book. We purchased it for them, and they've been teaching out of that book and trying those strategies in their classrooms, and they've been really excited about what they're seeing. And it starts out, there's a lot of problem solving based there, and it starts with just giving students an opportunity to solve problems that don't have anything to do with math, but just to build that idea of thinking and collaboration. And once they move on from there, then they're able to move into the content areas. We had an opportunity last week to go into some classrooms, and one of the things I call them vertical surfaces now, whiteboards, but they're vertical surfaces now, and but kids up at the board in groups of 3 working on a problem collaboratively. The groups are chosen randomly and they're chosen frequently, so students have an opportunity to work with a variety of students, so they're not working with their best friends. It teaches them how to be a teammate, and it teaches them how to be a teammate, and then also how to adopt different ways of thinking, and really looking at changing their own thinking. Was that 2 left? Oh, geez. Staff's noticing again, like I said, that who's doing the talking. It's really hard for kids to become invisible when they're up at the boards. The kids like being up and active, so that's been a great thing to see. This ties in great with the TGG work that we've been doing with justification, generalizations, and again, teachers are acting as facilitators more than just teachers, so it's seeing who's doing the talking, and teachers are asking probing questions and just saying, oh, here's the answer. They're saying, you know, what if you thought about it this way? So there's math. ELA. Our language arts group is big, and trying to get them to come together and find one common idea has been difficult. And they came together this year and did just an amazing job. They decided that in addition to the Springboard curriculum and what they're actually using daily, they're focusing on school-wide word analysis program aimed to improve and enrich the spelling and vocabulary skills. So students are studying roots, prefixes, suffixes, and seeing how that ties in with the origin of our language. It's really cool because it's school-wide. Every student is doing the exact same thing because it's brand new. It can be used across the curriculum. So the goal is that this really helps to improve our skills, and we've always been, one of our growth goals is with informational text. And so the idea is that by increasing the vocabulary, that this is really going to play nicely with our goals to improve those reading scores. Kids take a daily or a weekly quiz, and they're just rocking it each week. Staff's still trying to find the kind of the sweet spot on the time, because it started out taking a lot of time, but now they're able to scale it back and make it a little bit more efficient. I'm over, oh man. SEL stuff, we are focusing on sense of belonging, have monthly parent nights that one of our counselors does, and we do something called New Kids on the Ridge for people that are new to Harbor Ridge for parents and students, and thank you very much. And go Falcons.
Go Falcons. And go Seahawks. Thank you also for the opportunity to share some highlights about Peninsula High School. I'd like to recognize Danielle O'Leary and Mark Nichols here, who I have the privilege of working with every day and supporting the students in our community and the staff in our community. And I would say one of the things that makes Peninsula unique is we try to pride ourselves on having something for everybody. There is a way to plug in. There's a way to connect. We want you to connect and feel that sense of belonging and engagement with the school. I'm going to cover the instructional pieces that we're doing right now. I talked a little bit about it when we were talking about the math, but we've been, our initial first 3 cycles, like you've heard, we're really focused on the big 3 from our UDL work and professional development across all content areas. Our math team and our language arts team have really focused on diving into those intern-based assessments early, getting information that will help them with their pacing charts, that will help them with their instruction. And they've made some pretty significant adjustments to their pacing and their assessments based on that work. We like to and put a focus on instruction every single time we gather and we meet, whether it's our staff meetings that we have or our collaboration. Once a month, our collaboration is the entire school. If you want to come tomorrow morning to our collaboration, we're actually, our language arts department and our math department are both sharing strategies about how their content can be supported across the school day, whether it's health class or PE class or science classroom. So, just like Mr. Wickens talked about shared leadership, I feel like our best meetings are when the teachers are up in front talking to the teachers and sharing the good work they're doing. So, excuse me. Other thing instructionally is our co-taught classes. We've been that's another part of our inclusionary practices, is how do we give kids that might struggle a little bit more academically access to core content, access to a general ed classroom. And we have last year we had 4 co-taught classes, 2 in math, 2 in language arts. This year we have 6. We've expanded that, so that's been exciting as well. I would also add that we have a very high-functioning BLT, Building Leadership Team, and department heads that are really engaged and focused on student learning and helping their departments grow, helping their departments collaborate and align their work. And just also, like Luke mentioned, we're an AVID school, and that's also a part of our professional development. We send people to that training every summer, and we also have that as part of our professional development for staff throughout the year. Sense of belonging, we developed our own survey in addition to Panorama to see if we could get a little more granular information on our kids and learn a little bit more about who and how they're connecting to school, and also what might be barriers for them in connecting to school. And we just gave it for the first time, and we're looking at that data, to see if we can learn anything more about how we can support. We're also tracking student engagement in the school. Our goal is to have 100% of the kids involved in a sport, a club, drama, some kind of activity. And so throughout the year, we'll be tracking that, and our goal is 100%. It'll be kind of a good baseline for us to build off of, as we move forward. We had a club rush last week, where during our lunches we had all the clubs represented in the main gym, and kids could just walk through and see if there was anything they wanted that interested them or they were curious about, and they had the opportunity to sign up for stuff. Positive recognition, copy and awesome forms for students and staff. Our goal again is to make sure that we recognize every student in the building for doing something awesome in their behavior, in their work habits, in their connection to their school. Fall sports, all of our fall sports qualified for playoff competition, but even better than that, they all received outstanding academic achievement awards, and our volleyball earned a distinguished award, which is the highest you can achieve. Our performing arts, unique this year, is actually a joint collaboration with Gig Harbor High School, because both our choir teacher and our drama teacher are spending part of their day at Gig Harbor High School. And Creston was able to come to the concert a week ago, which was both Gig Harbor High School and Peninsula High School performing together, which was pretty cool and really healthy for our community. And I think also it needs to be noted that impacting the sense of belonging in our school is our new security officer and the connection he's been able to make with kids in the hallway, just connecting with kids and making himself accessible and visible and available. And it's been awesome. Graduation, as far as graduation rates, we're monthly tracking student progress. Monthly communication home through Parent Square, individual contacts home for kids that we see that are at risk or have a real individualized pathway towards graduation. Our counselors are connecting with those families regularly. We have weekly meetings with our admin team and our counselors, and we explore out-of-the-box ideas and alternative pathways for kids who may just need something a little bit different. We're, in addition to the upperclassmen, we're looking very closely at our ninth graders too. and trying to get them out of the gate. You know, we are about a quarter of the way through the school year already. And those kids don't realize how quickly they can get themselves into a hole, some of them. So we're trying to really track those closely and communicate with those kids closely so they get off to a good start. I think they get up to high school and it's big and it's like, whoa, there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of things to do and there's a lot of places to go and there's a little more independence. And it's kind of like when you send your son or daughter off to college, you know, they can find themselves in a spot they didn't intend to be in pretty quickly. So we're really trying to help them with that. I would just also like to celebrate our graduation rate and a shout out to our counselors for watching it so closely and really looking at how to help and support the kids that are challenged. And I would also like to recognize our partnership with communities and schools and the wraparound services they're able to provide us and support and recognizing barriers and removing barriers for kids and just, you know, side-by-side support with us as we try to give kids access to what they need. So, and feel free to come by for collaboration tomorrow morning. So thank you.
All right. These guys don't know what 5 minutes is. So, talk just briefly about the sense of belonging. Thursday is the end of the first quarter, and so at Henderson Bay we do grades, and we'll have new kids coming in next week. We spent a significant chunk of our first few weeks just really focusing on expectations and behavior and why do you want to be at Henderson Bay? It is a choice, right? And one of the cool things that we did was every advisory got together and established, here's our norms. And then we come to an all-school meeting and they shared out, here's what, 8 advisories, here's what we see that we want, how we want our school to act. And then our leadership kids took those and pulled them all together and smushed them and created one school-wide set of expectations. It's really powerful when it comes from your kids that says, here's how we want to act with each other. And I think that's really helped set the tone for the first 9 weeks of our school year. It's been pretty powerful. I'm going to talk about just reading and math real quick. We use the iReady. I don't think the other high schools use iReady. It's more of a middle school, but it works for us. And what we liked about iReady is it gives us some very specific strands to look at. We're able to get almost all of our students tested. We're fortunate we have a grant this year, and we got to work with Katie Novak, and she came in and did some work with us, and it's like, okay, we're super excited. But we looked at that iReady data in terms of reading. And one of the things that we found was our kids are fluent. They can say it. They don't know what it means. So the vocabulary and the comprehension areas where we're spending incredible focus. So we've made a commitment that every week in each content area, they're going to spend time focusing on that academic vocabulary. If you can read it, but you don't know what it means, that's a problem. We've also made a commitment that, going through some protocols with Katie, here's how we're going to focus on reading comprehension across the content areas. So every content area is making an effort. We're going to at least multiple times per quarter doing reading activities focused on comprehension in that content area. It's pretty exciting to watch when your staff is excited about doing things. Our collaborations are pretty incredible watching them stew things together. So similarly with math, we looked at math and using the iReady, our kids are pretty low in all areas. It's hard to think, it's hard to perform well in higher level algebra and geometric thinking if you don't have number sense and basic number operations. So using that iReady data, we focus, that's where our big focus was. PEMDAS, anyone remember, right? Please something with my Aunt Sally. But please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? And so trying to do algebraic thinking if you don't understand basic order of operations is a challenge. So our math teams got together, and a couple times a week, they're building in very specific areas to target those math skills removed from the content area as well as embedded into the content area, if that makes any sense. So we're just starting into that process. We'll do the iReady again in January and then again in late spring. So I'm excited to see the growth that we're going to make in those areas. So that's my time.
Thank you for having me. I've just been sitting back there listening to all these great things, and I'm sure you know that really 5 minutes is not enough to share all the great things that we're doing. And what we say here is not even close to what's happening in the classrooms and in the building. So again, invite you out. Come see what I'm going to share with you, because it really does not describe it all right? I've sat up here before. I've told you that at the core at Goodman Middle School is relationships, relationships with each other, relationships with kids, relationships with our community. I've gone through that. So I'm just going to share a little bit about, as we continue doing that work of building relationships and how we move kids forward, just a few things that we're continuing to do. Oh, and that's how great it is. Some of this, you know me, I like to dramatize it up. Anyways, okay, so one of the things that we're doing this year, we're calling it Roadrunner Scholars, and we all have an advisory. Ours is called WIN, it's what I need. And this year in particular, we're, to close the gap, we're really spending some time around vocabulary intervention, and we're doing that as we talk about iReady and looking at our scores, we're doing that across all content. So we're really going science, math, we're really talking about that we teach reading in all content areas. And I know that sounds really simple, and yet it was something kind of like a yeah, we do that. How do we do that, and how do we do it well? So on Thursdays and Fridays, we call it Roadrunner Scholars, and we're taking the iReady data specifically, and we're looking at Tier 2 and Tier 3 students who need that. And then we're actually having them do a walk-to model and getting direct instruction from reading teachers along with some of our elective teachers and our math teachers. We are going to be doing that. We're also going to be doing some work around math and looking specifically at simplifying and reducing fractions for students, because we see that as a strand that needs to be supported. And I can go into more of that, but we're also an AVID school. We do a lot of work around organization with Wicker. Thank you. And so our focus, so we've been using our planners, and with the UDL, I'm using all these words you've heard, right? With our UDL work and our learning objectives, we use our planners, and we're doing self-reflection in those planners, and we're also using the learning target. So kids are going in, writing down their learning target for the day, or a self-reflection of the day, and they're being able to go back and look at that in the next day, because we've seen through AVID, as we're talking about that increases memorization, which will also increase the ability to do well on their learning. So. We are also using instructional assessment blocks, IABs. Thank you, Mike. And so we're looking at that information on what specific strands and information we need. And so that's all this work is kind of I'm going to say it's murky and it's hard, but we're doing it, and so it's really empowering for us, because it is hard. And our leadership team is pushing through. And I have a leadership team member here because they just understand the power of relationships, and they recognize it, and they're doing that work. We have a WIN calendar specifically for the work that we're doing. We are doing like tournaments within the WIN calendar. I'm sorry, WIN, the advisory time. We're also doing our character strong lessons on Monday, our AVID work on Tuesdays, where we're doing learning plans. And so our kids are actually planning out their week with their advisory teacher. What does it look like? Who do they need to talk to? What tests they have to retake? What's going on in the classroom? So there's a lot of those pieces that allow kids the opportunity to kind of own their own learning. And we're also doing co-taught lessons. We're also doing co-taught teaching classes in both math and reading in all 3 grade levels. And so that means we have a general ed teacher and a special education teacher in classrooms 6, 7, and 8th. And really, it comes down to, again, that crosswork. We're doing book groups with our librarian within there as we're trying to extend students' learning. So we're not just focusing on what needs to be done for our students who need to grow, but we're also looking at extensions as well. So with that, thank you. Go Roadrunners. Come join us anytime.
Tell your BLT member.
Oh, And thank you, Melissa, for showing up.
All right. Thank you so much again for having us here today. I know that it's already been said, but the 5 minutes is just not enough time to put everything into this. Before I kind of go into what we're doing here at Kopachuk, though, I wanted to acknowledge Nate Hudak, who is my assistant principal, who is currently at our jazz band concert tonight. So that is a level of support that we ask of our assistant principals as well as all of our admin. So I just wanted to acknowledge that while he may not be here, he is here in spirit. Nate, go Coyotes. So at Kopachuk, I also, too, like Luke, felt that if I didn't write this down, I would be standing here for about 20 minutes. So I'm going to talk about the new things that we have going on at Kopachuk that are different from what you've heard from last year. So at Kopachuk, our driving passion is to ensure the success of all of our students. We approach this mission with unwavering determination and a well-thought-out strategy to meet their unique needs. We've implemented a multi-tiered supportive system of support, MTSS, that is intentionally designed to create an environment where our students can not only succeed but thrive academically. Our system, as I'm going to talk about it tonight, is a little bit different in the structure, so I'm going to break down each tier for you. Our MTSS system is structured with 3 key tiers. At the first tier, we provide building-wide support, creating a solid foundation for all students. We've taken a page from John Hattie's extensive research and adopted the principles of collective teacher efficacy, where we believe in the power of our teachers to make the difference. Our master schedule was intentionally built, bookending students' days with the same teacher. So their PAC period teacher is also their 6th period teacher. This stems from our belief in building strong connections. These connections and consistencies are in line with Hattie's research, fostering a sense of belonging and also offering us natural opportunities for additional supports at the Tier 2 level, which may look like check-in, check-outs for students embedded into their already scheduled periods. When it comes to the academic successes, math is our education focus for this year, as well as ELA success, but we have our largest gains that we need to make in math. We are passionate about propelling our students to greater heights, and our response to our school improvement plan goal of achieving a 14% increase in math proficiencies coincides with the introduction of our new accelerated curriculum. We saw this as a golden opportunity. We've strategically expanded our accelerated course enrollments in 6th grade to advance math skills. Within our first 6-week cycle, we completed an evaluation and noted that our student placements resulted in over 47% of our 6th graders now enrolled in the 6-7 accelerated class, and based on teacher feedback and our iReady data are appropriately paced. This also is based on their present and past performance levels through homeroom. In addition, we've also embraced the co-taught model, not only in our math classes, but as well as in our ELA, allowing us to differentiate for students' needs at a deeper level now that we've also increased our number of students in accelerated classes. Moving on to the second tier, within our classrooms, teachers collaborate within professional learning communities. This passion here is inspiring. As we strive to align our curriculum and analyze common formative assessments, or CFAs, lovingly known as CFA cycles in my building, we emphasize the significance of teacher clarity and learning objectives. We recently completed a 6-week cycle where we kind of first got our feet wet on what were CFAs, what was the cycle. And this was a very new process for our building, and it was one of the days where I texted my colleagues and said, I'm crying in my Wednesday collaborations walking around to my classrooms because my elective teachers are all asking about what their student data is. And my math teacher had an aha as they sat in front of their red and green and yellow screen and said, wow, now I can really see where my students are in a live in-classroom basis. It's truly inspiring to see the work of my teachers and them embracing this process and really analyzing and talking about what our student data is real time. Hattie's work on teacher clarity has shown us the profound impact of clear learning targets, and that continues to propel us forward in our next 6-week cycle. I'd also like to emphasize our collaboration with administrators at Gig Harbor High School. Their insights and professional development have been instrumental in guiding our focus and supporting our work around learning objectives. We are better together, and if we don't have to recreate the wheel as administrators, leaning on our professional learning communities as well helps all of our system rise. So thank you, Michelle and Gig Harbor, for your work on our PD with our staff. Hattie's emphasis on teacher clarity and the significance of learning objectives has been that guiding light for our past 6 weeks and our continued 6-week cycle. And we are determined to ensure that every student understands their path to success. At the third tier, our commitment to student success continues to shine. Academic and social emotional intervention groups are strategically formed based on a wealth of data. These groups are an embodiment of our dedication to the success of all students. Our approach mirrors Hattie's principles, and we believe in the power of evidence-based practices. Our intervention groups include support for students through SEL, including utilizing our Character Strong Tier 2 curriculum. We support students in groups regarding relationships and positive relationships with peers, as well as self-regulation and self-efficacy. We also have small intervention groups built into our day for math as well as ELA, and we've started implementing our Seeing Stars curriculum with small groups of students of ELA need within the day as well. All of our work that we've done, I've tried to intentionally build into our master schedule day so that it's giving access to all students and allowing them to be flexible, as well as our building being able to be flexible in response to their needs. We've also built in common planning time for teachers to utilize optionally if they'd like to collaborate with their peers further than the Collaboration Wednesday time. In closing, our passion as Kopachuk is palpable, and our multi-tiered system is meticulously structured to be highly responsive to the unique needs of all of our students. With inspiration from the insights at Gig Harbor High School, Hattie's research, and our unwavering commitment, we are ensuring that our students are on the path to success. Thank you.
I think I'm last. I will say there's some disadvantages to going last because you're probably going to hear a lot of the same things you've been hearing. But I just want to first say that if that doesn't tell you the progress of our principal team and our district, I don't know what else does, because you're hearing this alignment and these terms over and over and over again. And while I haven't been here that long, I can tell you it's the most I've seen in the time that I've been here. So it's super exciting. And I would just like to say we learn from each other so much. So thank you. So I'm going to do my little intro, and then I'm just going to share a little bit. And then if you have any questions about those things, feel free, because you're probably going to have questions at the end. Maybe, yeah? I don't know. That's the next slide. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. So at Gig Harbor High School, we have embraced the superintendent's call to be fierce about data. As we look to our SIP goals, we are striving to gather and act on data to move the needle on student achievement while fulfilling our mission, which is to create a safe harbor where everyone is valued and respected so that students are successful today and prepared to contribute tomorrow. We are committed to intentional CICs, or continuous improvement cycles. And I will say, this has been a shock. So this is a very different learning for us in this district and in our schools. So I can't express enough that this has been a learning for our leadership. It's been a learning for our teachers, and I think Kelsey put it perfectly when she said, we've dipped our toes in and we're getting our footing on it. But it really is an incredible process. These 6-week cycles are focused on incremental changes because we believe that incremental shifts and responding proactively to student needs in real time can lead to moving the needle on student achievement. CICs have provided an opportunity for rich discussions among teacher teams and PLCs, sharing across content areas. We're seeing a clearer focus as a school and continuity across disciplines because of these 6-week cycles, and focused on our SIP goal through an LDL lens. So specifically, let's talk about some of our specific areas. You've heard a lot of us talk about ELA, and we've talked about vocabulary. One of the things that we've noticed is that when we talk about the SBA and we talk about ELA in particular, it's actually not English language arts. That's the piece that gets missed along the way. It's actually literacy. So only about 1/3 of the SBA is actually around what you and I would consider English language arts, right? A poem, a passage that we read and we infer something from. The other parts are scientific readings, primary sources, cartoons, political cartoons, graphs, data, all that kind of stuff that they have to grab from. So our focus this year has really been on that idea of literacy. What does it mean to have content or disciplinary literacy so that when our students encounter these things, they're not shocked and going, I've never seen this word before. So we're working on that in every area. So in our English and world languages, we're focused on our learning targets, but like in social studies, we're really drilling down to those primary sources. And if you haven't read something from the 1800s, you might be shocked, right? It's a language we don't understand anymore. So helping them to decipher and work through those things through close reading strategies is going to help them when they encounter it on the SBA and the SAT and ACT and all those other areas that they're going to encounter them. Similarly, in math, we recognize that this content is covered in more than the math classes. We recognize that math skills are cross-disciplinary as well. So we like to think that math only takes place in math, but how often do we find a graph or something like that in a newspaper article that they have to be able to understand? So in core math classes, teachers are focusing on explicit direct instruction of math vocabulary in each unit. In geometry, get ready for it, teachers are embedding algebraic concepts from the SBA in their units, so they're bridging the gap between Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, because somebody decided it was a good idea to put geometry in between. And then they lose their algebraic concepts. So we're embedding those all the way along so those do not get lost along the way. And then in biology, the team is running cycles on graphing, because that skill is not only vital to the biology learning and skills, but also mathematics and humanities disciplinaries. Our grad rate, as we shared earlier, was off the charts. Go Benoit. Go Tovi. And we're super proud of that. I will say that is a result of tremendous work. Mary Kate Grant, Mary Kate and Ashley, Michelle, full house. Mary Kate has worked tirelessly with our 12th graders and our counselors working on their graduation pathway. Ashley Stolahan supports 9th graders, so there's that bridge in between, and they've done a tremendous job helping our students stay on track. One action step that our counselors have taken is to identify freshmen who failed one or more classes in 8th grade. One or more core classes in 8th grade. So when we drew this data, they identified 28 students, and they're working with those students individually, meeting with them individually, setting goals with each of them individually to make sure they are on track so that they can start out well as they move through. We also have an SST, or a student support team, that meets every single week to talk through students of concern. As far as sense of belonging, I will be honest with you, there's been a lot of work around sense of belonging. Our ASB team, our leadership team, has done a lot of work around engaging students and inclusion. They're doing a lot of stuff with lunches and things like that. But I will say that when it comes to our work around sense of belonging, it really started last year with focus groups. So we wanted to get to the granular piece of why we weren't seeing what we wanted to see. And so Ashley Stolahan ran focus groups with every single homeroom that existed at Gay Harbor High School. And then we gathered that data. And then we've been meeting with James Canton Wine and Panorama to talk through how we might be able to act on that data. But probably the most significant thing that has contributed to sense of belonging is the cell phone policy. I'm going to be honest with you. We're seeing kids engage in the classroom. We're seeing class discussions. We're seeing them looking at each other. It just has created a whole new sense of community. And it was that one small but big move that has had a tremendous impact on sense of belonging. So we're super passionate about every student being successful at Gay Harbor High School, just like my colleagues behind me who are tremendous individuals, and we thank you for this opportunity. Okay.
So thank you. Before we move on to questions, it's been fun to work with each of these principals. As I've gone around and checked in on our charge to school work, we were thinking about this last slide, which, not this question one, but the one that makes you unique. And it was fun for me because whether they've had the conversations or not, those things that were unique were actually very common. And so what I would share with you in my notes that I've carried with me and what I just heard, as we think about those 4 areas on the strategic plan and our alignment, Belonging. You've heard about belonging. What you've heard from some of them, but I think all of them are doing, because I've talked to them about it, is they're using the panorama data, but they're not waiting for those longer panorama periods. I believe they all are, I can't think of anybody who's not, doing some kind of dipstick measure in between, because you can't just wait for those long measures. You have to adjust the course. And so they are all doing those dipstick measures. They've harvested some questions from Panorama, and they're administering those regularly so that they can look at who those students are who are not feeling as though they're belonging and what the barriers are so that they can overcome those. When we look at ELA and math, you heard about the interim assessment blocks. Great data for teachers. What wasn't mentioned is that gives our students an exposure to the prompts that will be similar to what they're going to see on the SBA. And yes, why not put those prompts in front of our students and let them see what that's going to look like? So it's benefit to teachers, but it's also a benefit to our students. You also heard about co-taught classes going on in every building. Access to grade level standards for all students, regardless of whether they have a language barrier or some other kind of specific learning disability. If they don't have access to the grade level standards, how can we expect them to meet those grade level standards? And we accommodate and we modify to meet those. Those are both ELA and math. You're seeing those. You heard a lot about what Michelle used the term disciplinary literacy. As I've met with each of them, they said, you know what? Our literacy goals are not just an English teacher challenge. They're a challenge for all of our teachers, and you heard them talk about informational text and attacking that across their building, not just in English classes. You heard some about, hey, we're trying to figure out where math has connections in other disciplines. And then you've heard about grad rates. Who are those students who are not graduating? Not just who are they, but what are the barriers? And how do we help them over those barriers? And how do we collaborate with some of our community partners to do that? So I just have to say I'm so very proud of them. At times we think we're very unique, but as they're going down each pathway, sometimes they come back together in those pathways. So after summarizing that, what questions do you have for our principals and maybe our assistant principals?
Yep. There you go. When I'm looking at these numbers, the common thread that follows from doing the elementary schools last week is that we have a demographic area that is lower achieving. What are we doing in those areas where we identify those kids that need additional resources? I know we've lost some of our title funding because people aren't filling out the paperwork for the free and reduced lunch and stuff. So we're not getting the extra help in that way. So I'm looking at KPMS seems to be at the bottom. And so are we giving them extra teachers? Are we giving them extra resources? Are we what are we doing to actually help those kids that really need the extra help?
Chuck, we're not there yet.
Okay.
But you got to start with a big goal, and then to your point, put a plan in place. Kelsey talked about it when I brought up MTSS. We look at things in terms of tiers. So we first have to do a better job of giving all of our students access to grade level content. And then that co-taught model that we moved to this year is about then not just saying, hey, we got a gen ed class for you, but then having our case manager, special education case manager in that class to support the specific needs, challenges, IEP goals connected to those students. The student support team piece that I talked about, Chuck, was we have some students that aren't going to respond to that need extra, this extra layer. And so we meet every other week. We used some title funds to bring on a success coach, Mandy Swainston, who's been amazing. We have our community and schools coordinator in there as well, our counselors, Kim Kinney, our amazing assistant principal. And the work that we do in there is really tied to identifying, we look at grade data, D's and F's, we look at screening assessment data, behavior data, all the things that are barriers to achievement that, show up in these numbers. And then we get explicit about, we built our KPMS playbook, MTSS playbook. I have an NFL problem. So it's kind of the metaphor I use with our staff. We got to get aligned on our systems. We have a piece of that playbook that's our intervention grid. And so that helps us identify, when we look at data, when students have this many referrals or this many D's and F's, we pull that data and identify the students and then connect them to an tier 2 level intervention. And with that intervention and progress monitoring it over time, we can see whether or not we're moving the needle and helping students achieve and be proficient at grade level. So there are pieces to the puzzle that are in place. The co-top piece, using our success coach and our title funds that way. Some of our academic interventions I talked about, Cougar Catch Up. And I would say the overarching theme too, Chuck, is belief. We got to believe that our kids, no matter where they come from, can achieve just like everyone else, if not greater. And I'll tell you this, myself, Mrs. Kinney, and our team believe that. It's challenging, and when you look at data, it's not fun, but I wholeheartedly believe that it starts with hope, starts with belief, and then again, putting the actual, doing the work and coming together in alignment on what our plan is, those shared commitments that we have as a team and doing that work together.
So I in no way am I pointing a finger at you.
Oh, no, I got you.
But I know the demographics out there. I mean, in my previous job, I went from house to house, and I went into some of them homes, and I know what they're coming from. And I know that school is a place of refuge for a lot of these kids. And it's a step up. So when we recognize a school that's falling below, are we giving them, and maybe this is more for my admin, are we giving them additional resources to address this? I know he's working with everything he's got, but sometimes you don't have enough people.
Can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Chuck, I was working out on the key for a long time,
Right.
and I would say that as we look at that, it's a tough comparison when we're looking at it's almost apples and oranges.
Yeah.
You're looking at schools in the Gateway, you're looking at keeping it simple. You look at the demographics and you look at the work that's being done there and the scores in comparison to other schools with similar demographics.
Yeah.
That score changes. That's a different look because you're seeing a higher score. You're seeing great things happening, and yes, there's still lots of work to be done. But
Right.
when you compare it across other schools and other demographics, you're seeing success, and you're seeing a school that's modeling. Other schools are looking at KPMS for the work that they're doing. So
Yeah, and I recognize that. I applaud the schools that are out there and what they're doing. But it seems like if we, as a district, can give a little additional resource to bring these numbers back up, I don't want them to put this number out there, hopefully they can achieve it, but actually they know they can't.
So let me take a stab at that, and then maybe we can move on.
Yeah.
First of all, I think what you heard from Mr. Grunberg was one of the big reasons that Superintendent Barr and I were excited when he agreed to be the principal at Key Peninsula Middle School, because it does start with that belief. Title funds. So Lisa Ray is not here tonight. She's home ill. Lisa works, I'm sure, with John, but at the secondary level works with me on not just the amount of title funds, that is a factor, but how do we use them effectively? is what we did previously, did that show a change in student outcomes? And so when we sat down with Luke this spring and we said, how do we want to use these? What are the gaps? What are the barriers? And he shared some insight, having been there a year, and said, here's what I think we need. You know, do we give more? That's a discussion for Ashley and myself and others. But I will tell you, yeah, they'll take it. But what I will tell you is sometimes it's not just the amount, but it's how we're using it and what has it shown in the past. And I really appreciate what Luke had to say here about belief and everything else he's instilled along with Kim. But I really appreciate when he came on board looking at not just how much, but how do we use it most effectively and most efficiently. And so he just described the role of the success coach. And that was a gap. He said, here's a gap that we need to fill. So I really appreciate his look on that and his discussion about the belief.
So I was just going to start by saying thank you so much, all of you. I know this is a ton of work, but this has to be one of the best, this and the elementary school sit plan nights of the year for us to actually hear what's going on in each building and how we're actually, and by we, I mean you, are actually doing the work of what needs to happen on all the things. And because I love that our schools are so different. My favorite thing about tonight is to see each of you, because I've been in your buildings, and I do think each one of you is just a little embodiment of the culture in your building. And it's so fun to see. And I just kind of I never thought I'd say this. I kind of want to go back to middle school and high school, maybe just for a couple hours and just, you know, be a part of it. So thank you all for what you do for kids. And I think it's obvious that you all believe in every single one of them. And so thank you for that. I was going to ask a question that I've tried to think what would be a question that a community member might have in looking at this data, because it is overwhelming. You know, just because I'm on the board, I don't understand it more than most community members. And so maybe this is a question for James or for Dan, because it's not intended to be building specific at all. It's more just a general, other than we sort of just addressed, and maybe the answer is we just covered this. When we were all very passionate about moving the needle on student achievement, I mean, that's the hope and the goal, right? And but when you do look at numbers that are vastly different in different categories for different schools, and everything is, you know, and the goals are different. And I understand that they're mathematical because you have to improve more if you're, you know, needing to. What makes it possible for a building to move the needle more than a different building in the current arrangement? Not, you know, what, not necessarily like what do you need as far as funding, because that would be lovely, but do you understand? It's more of a very general question. Someone who looks at this and might think, is that actually a real possibility that you know, one group in any category could move, whether it's graduation rate or whatever, significantly more than another group, and what makes it possible?
Yeah, I think we can see that most clearly if we're looking at math scores versus graduation. As we're, you know, at a graduation rate district-wide of 91%, getting each additional percent is going to be really hard, right? It's going to be a whole lot of work. On the other hand, if we look at some of our math results, getting 1%, maybe not so tough. Right, so where we are as a starting point is a big factor in terms of what does classroom instruction look like? What does the student's previous background in that area look like? And then we can start thinking about what kind of difference can we expect some of those research-based and evidence-based best practices, what does it look like when we start to layer those on to whatever our current practice is? As Luke was up talking about the MTSS playbook, and research nerds like me don't call it the playbook, we'll call it a blueprint. It's the same thing, right? But that's exactly what kind of the research base on school improvement would suggest, that at any point, that's where you start, is getting that really robust blueprint that's showing when these things happen, based on our data, these are going to be our immediate responses and our immediate results, so that we're able to then spend more of our time when we're meeting kind of looking at that data and looking at, okay, that didn't work, what do we do next? And so making sure that we have that in place at every building is going to make a pretty dramatic difference, and it's going to make a different level of difference based on where kids are currently scoring. So I think we can't necessarily guarantee that those different growth targets are all sort of equally feasible. But the kind of research behind school improvement would suggest that kind of starting where we are, where you heard the principals talking about MTSS and UDL, those are kind of the two kind of broadly best practices in the English-speaking world around improving schools, and the place to start and then build from.
Thank you. I also wanted to mention, I think one of the most significant things, at least for me, that I heard tonight when it comes to looking at the data was simply the reminder that kids don't benefit or or they're not penalized based on how well they do on these, or if they even take them at all.
Right.
And so that's significant to consider.
Can I say one other thing? I guess the other thing too that I would say is that we're a really collaborative group, and I think a very strong group, and the time that we take together and to learn from one another, if schools are performing better in one area or another, just asking the questions and getting out and part of the walkthrough process that we're doing, seeing what's going on in those really successful classrooms is really important. And I think we've got a great group to do that. And Creston's made it really a strong goal for us to have some dedicated time to do that. And I think we're going to see as a district that we're going to be really moving the needle in the years to come. So.
Just piggybacking off what James said and a little bit about what Lori said, back in 2014, 2015, the strategic plan goals back then were like similar 10% a year in growth. And back then we had some of our elementary schools that were at 95% reading, and then some were at 70. So the next year for that elementary school that was at 90 or 95 to get that same percentage of growth was much harder for exactly what James said, because they had less, the needle wasn't as wide, right? So what I would say for Chuck is KPMS has much better possibility for huge growth this year than maybe some of the other schools. So when you're giving individual attention to each kid that maybe lacked it during COVID or whatever, I would see the opportunity for KPMS to jump 20-25% in 1 year, where the other ones that are a little bit higher up may only go up 15 or 10. And so, and at some point, I see Luke and KPMS balancing out and catching up to the other schools, and then that 10% growth over year won't be as dramatic. So between now and next year, you're going to look like a rock star when you go from where you are now to where you're going to be. But I mean, you. Green jacket. Luke, I've known Luke a long time, so you're already a rock star. But I'm saying your opportunity to really shine in the next year, because of the amount of growth you're going to see, is going to be, even with the same amount of effort as the other schools, you stand a chance, stand the biggest gain, is all I'm saying. And for me, it's definitely time to put COVID behind us. I mean, obviously a lot of this is because of COVID, but now we need to be looking forward. And I know last year the board said we understand we're at a new starting point post-COVID, and we expect to be at a lower point. But yes, we have a big goal, but we have a lot of work to do. There's only one school that's represented here tonight that is above 50% in math, only one. So we do have big goals, and we do have a lot of work to do. And like Chuck said, that's not pointing fingers. That's just a fact, okay? And we're one of the best school districts in the county as far as where we're at. So, and we have a goal in our strategic plan to be the best school district in the state. And so you have to have big goals to get there. And so I think they're achievable and attainable. And I think with the motivation that we're hearing tonight, I think that we'll certainly get there. I would just something specific for Michelle. You said some really great things about what your plan is. I'd really like to see you put some of that into your individual SIP plan.
Okay.
Because I read during tonight, I read all your SIP plans, your individual ones, and you said some great stuff. I'd really like to see embedded in your SIP plan, okay?
I just feel like that SIP plan is going to be like 90 pages long.
No.
It's going to be super long.
Really nice
yeah.
one-liners.
Okay.
That I'm like, why, I would love to see that in your SIP plan.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
I mean, it's great things, as you said. I'd like to see that avid, the fact that
Yeah.
the avid schools, put it in your SIP plan. I'd like to see that highlighted, that you're an avid school, the ones that are avid. My question for me is, are these SIP plans gonna be posted so the community members can see them online?
So James,
If they are. I
James, will you
apologize for
come
not
up and
knowing.
address that? Because I know that there are limitations on how much we're putting in there.
Yes.
Yes.
So-
So will you clarify all this for
Yeah, so
Director Olson?
I paused real quick, I apologize, because I'm just looking at Looker Studio, and so for me, that doesn't show that it's on the Peninsula School District website, so.
Right. So if you're on the district's main page and you scroll down ever so slightly, depending on your resolution, you'll see the strategic plan is listed out there. If anyone clicks on the strategic plan, they'll see an option to, I believe it's over on the right-hand side, kind of takes it right, okay, nods. You'll see an option for a data dashboard, and then right below that is school improvement plans. And that takes you to the Looker Studio, so anyone in the public can see that same view on the school improvement plans that you're looking at. Now, in order to do that, we've got some limitations. Mason's a wizard, but even wizards have limits. So each of those school improvement plans has to have the exact same number of rows and columns. Things have to be in the right places, kind of on the plan that the principal and their leadership team are working with to then make sure that it gets displayed in a consistent format. So principals can start adding in those additional details as long as we keep the same consistent number of rows in there. One of the things for principals that has been new for them to kind of juggle is making sure that we're focusing on what goes in the improvement plan is something that's new that they're working on, or something they're working on with kind of a renewed intentionality. So in some cases that is AVID in terms of the Wicker strategies or other parts of AVID. In some cases that's, AVID is something they've already been doing and they're focusing their intentional improvement efforts in another direction.
Okay. Yeah, and that's, I'm just saying, I'm looking at this, and I just thank you for clarifying that the members of the community can go and see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And certainly what they might see right now is going to be shocking, and a year from now and a year from, and I'm a chart guy, so I'm looking forward to Chris putting that chart data together for us in the spring, because that's when we're going to see how we're doing, right?
And those school improvement plans, even on the district website, that's a live document that's updated automatically every night. So anything in there that building leadership teams, as they're going through the next couple weeks and they finish up another 6-week cycle, they've got the opportunity to kind of add more to that plan, because as you notice, the plans right now kind of are focusing on those improvement cycles, so they don't run through the entire year, because they don't necessarily know what steps they're going to need to take in March, because maybe they'll have solved those problems before then, or maybe some new ones will have arisen. And so knowing that plan is a living document, it's something that the school can and does go back to, and it's also something that the community can pull up, later in the year and see how things are progressing at any school.
Last thing for me is just, I added on here, ask about cell phone bans and how's that impacting student focus and engagement. Clearly, it's a win. So
good.
Super happy for our school district for that. So, and thank you for your passion. Thank you for all your hard work. Okay. And, thanks.
Thank you all so much. That was really fantastic. And I recognize that compressing everything into 5 minutes, you feel like you don't do it justice, but I feel like you did tremendous justice, because I think sometimes we lose the ability to look comprehensively when things are spread out across multiple weeks. And I think what was really eye-opening was to hear those common threads. And so I have a couple questions around those. One, the collaboration that's evident between all of the secondary schools couldn't be more clear than hearing those same words come out. And so I've been sitting here particularly around two things that, as a parent of a middle schooler, I just came off conferences, and I walked away thinking like, wow, we really hit the lottery, because her specific teachers are doing these very specific things to that, right? And now I'm hearing those same things from all of you. And I'm going, oh my gosh, this is actually across the district. Like, this is so exciting. And I think the two that I wish I could show you guys, or maybe we can figure out a way for you to see this, because the one, we're talking about vocabulary and so what did you call it?
Disciplinary.
Thank you. That is the word of the night, right? Because I think when you see what that looks like, right, like how that's being taught across to the students about how breaking down words into their root form, prefix, suffixes, and context, all of those things. Like, I had never seen something like that until I saw it in the conference, and now I understand what you're talking about, and it's huge, right? It's huge for being able to translate into other subjects, understand what you're reading. So thank you for that. That was really, really exciting to hear. And the math one too, right? Like the verticals, the vert surfs, and getting up in small groups, right? Like, this has been a completely different year for my child with math. And it is, and I thought, oh wow, she's so lucky she happened to get the teacher that does this. Well, she didn't, if you're all doing that. So that's great. I mean, just physically moving around the room, particularly in math, but like you said, keeping an eye on the kids, having them, explain and work together in these small groups that change a lot. I mean, it really has been a very big difference in just 1 year that I have seen. And it really is encouraging to know that that is happening everywhere. I mean, not that Harbor Ridge isn't an amazing place, but I am so heartened to hear it's happening everywhere.
And can I just say, I really believe that's the district's commitment to Katie Novak too, and the work that she's done with UDL Big Three, because that is collaboration and community, and that's learning targets and the real intentionality around what we're doing in the classroom. We're seeing the fruit of all of that. So thank you for helping us get there.
I do have questions though. not sorry for you, it might be for James more. So in all of this alignment that has been happening, how do you hold things constant and identify what's different and changing when there are so many moving parts?
So that's the big part of why you heard the principals, every principal mention the importance of walkthroughs. Because it's one thing for us to say, well, here's the adopted curriculum. What's far more important is the enacted curriculum. What does that actually look like in a classroom at Harbor Ridge Middle School? What does that actually look like at Kopachuk Middle School? If those are different, why? Is that an intentional difference? Is it working out well to do it differently, or is it something that we need to be doing more in common? And so that's something also that showed up on the district improvement plan too, was really making sure that we have an idea of what's the enacted curriculum? What does it look like when we walk into a classroom? Are we seeing consistent expectations across classrooms at Henderson Bay, Gig Harbor, and Peninsula High School? Or are we seeing cases where, kind of students aren't being held to the same high academic rigorous standards? And that's been one of the big focuses for our leaders as they're going out and getting around, is kind of seeing, well, not just does a teacher have a learning target posted, are those learning targets grade level appropriate? And if they're not, how do we help the student and the teacher kind of reach those high grade level targets? Standards like the Common Core State standards, like the Next Generation Science standards, these weren't written because every kid reached them already, right? They were written to be high aspirational standards that we want kids to reach, not that kids were already largely reaching those. And so making sure that all classrooms in Peninsula School District are having instruction that's taught to that high level, and that all students are having a chance to access that content. That's really been the work of our leaders so far, and that part's going to continue throughout the year.
To follow up on that, so I think at the elementary SIP, we kind of touched on it a little bit when the question was around the SBA as the measuring stick, right? Mm-hmm. Versus this or the last year, it was the first I'd heard we don't longer have that strand data to be able to go and understand where the holes are. Mm-hmm. So I guess, can you talk a little bit to that at the secondary level, particularly with how does iReady then become the tool that's being used, yet we're being held by the state to the standard of the SBA?
Right.
And how do we thread that needle to get an accurate picture what our kids are learning?
Yeah, so a reason that districts across the state, or really across the nation, use other tools, we happen to use iReady. While they're a big player in Washington State, there are about 5 other, kind of competing products that each have their own, kind of pros and cons. But with iReady, one of the reasons for us to use that is that it is a tool that we can use multiple times a year to measure growth and get an idea of, are students growing, and not just are they growing at all, but are they growing an amount that we might otherwise kind of predict if we look at national trends. Are they growing more or less, at one of our schools than another? And then that really is giving teams a chance to look at where are the gaps. So with an iReady assessment, our middle schools have vary a bit based on whether vocabulary seems to be a need or not. They don't vary with comprehension of informational text. That's a big struggle. That's true everywhere. That's not just true in Peninsula schools. Versus the comprehension of literature. So in general, students are doing better on understanding literary text that they're reading, fiction text, than they are at reading informational text. And so they're getting that kind of information from an iReady that they're not getting from an SBA. So SBA includes those different parts, but there are so few questions on each portion that then we don't get that data.
Thank you. I just wanted to add in, so iReady is still also just that 3 times a year data mark. And the true work of our teachers that we're embracing at Kopachuk and that we're kind of seeing, and Luke also talked about at KPMS, is getting down to even that finer grain size of formative assessments and taking that one step further of it being a common formative assessment. So for example, my Social Studies 8 team has taken the SBAC standards and they've broken it down backward planned throughout the year to be able to get students to where those standards are. They meet regularly to backward plan what's happening live time in their classroom, how they're assessing using the same formative assessment, whether it's a entry task or an exit slip, or it's a more summative like a unit assessment. And collaborating on where, like James just said, what's the instructional shift that needs to happen, and being able to utilize each other to support each other in that work. And really, part of this is stepping back from no longer teaching to the test, but teaching who's in front of you that live time and being able to look at that data regularly with your colleagues and supporting each other with that process, kind of breaking out of those silos of individual classroom data sets, so that we can really see, even class to class, how are our students really doing, asking that question on a regular cycle. Our ELA team right now, and Michelle referenced this is a huge shift. Really going to this place where not only are we aligning curriculum, but what's that implementation in the classroom? Our ELA team is at a 6-week cycle with this. My social studies team is at about a 4-week cycle. My math team, however, because of the new curriculum, has really run with what's built into the curriculum. And they're on about a 2-week cycle. Research says from DeForest, 10 days is a highly functioning PLC cycle, right? So we have research out there that helps show us how to get to this place to be able to use real-time data. And I think what you were referencing in ELA, those dibbles, how frequently they're doing that, really even finer grain size is our goal to get to, so that we know exactly where every single student is, so we know how to move them, like Chuck was referencing, every single student to where they need to be.
That is really important, because I know as a parent, one of the things I've struggled with is understanding what about the lack of understanding where that is, with, especially as they get older, right?
Yes.
Because it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even know. When they're little, it's a bit easier. But like, to what extent, I know this was the first time I saw, and maybe I don't know, this may probably not for you, for the Creston maybe. How is there a format that parents can access this, so that, like, as in at home trying to support, and we can get educated on how and where these gaps may be? Because this is, I got the iReady score, and it has all this stuff, but it is a bit, it's a bit testy, like it's a bit, I don't quite know what to do with that, right? I mean, I see the chart, but how can I then translate that into supporting my child at home?
I think the biggest impact here is also what Katie Novak instills in us of empowering the student as the learner. And really at the core of UDL is when we get to beyond proficient in that level, the students are not only up on the board doing the math, but they are saying, here's what I'm going to learn today. Here's how I'm going to learn it. I see that objective. I know how I'm going to interpret that objective into what I need to do, and I'm going to utilize these different methods to access that and make sure that I've learned it by the end of the day. So really part of this is empowering your student to know also what's on there, and like talking with them about what their data is and asking questions and empowering them to ask different questions and kind of learn about, asking them about how they learn best and what supports they need, and helping them become the advocate for not just being the person in the seat, but the person taking charge of their learning. And again, like that was stated, flexible methods is another one of our focus areas, not just that clarity of that learning target, but really having students embrace that and being able to utilize that to move forward. That's the end goal. And again, we kind of talked about, this is the start of this big process.
James, can you just talk a little bit about IABs? I think that is I don't know if that's new concept and what that actually is, because that might also answer the question.
Yeah, so the state's assessment system that we use for ELA and math, the Smarter Balanced Assessment, the balanced part of that gets forgotten a lot. We focus a lot on the summative assessments. These are the ones that we've been talking about. But in addition to that, that same group, of which Washington was a leading member, that same group developed interim assessments that were meant to be used by teachers in classrooms in kind of whatever format they saw fit. So in a third grade classroom, we might see the whole group sort of taking an interim assessment together. Just as a way to kind of familiarize themselves with how do we work through this test engine? What does that look like? In other contexts, like Peninsula High School, where they're really going through those assessments and taking them as tests, right? And then using that data to inform instruction. So those interim assessment those tools come in a few different formats. The interim comprehensive assessment looks just like the full SBA. This is not well appreciated by teachers or students because it's so long. It requires some hand scoring. It's not a lot of fun. We don't see a lot of use of that one. More popular are the interim assessment blocks and the focused interim assessment blocks that'll target either a narrow group of standards or even a single standard and ask items just as they would appear on the summative state test, but really focus just on one or two standards. They're assessments that take far less than a class period in most cases. And then students and teachers get the feedback about, how is the student doing and what kinds of steps might we take to do even better next time.
So we are using those.
We are using those. We had close to zero kind of authentic testing use of that over the previous few years, largely coming out of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. We had students and teachers engaging with those in kind of that classroom format to familiarize themselves with the tool, mm-hmm. but very little use of those from kind of an instructional standpoint until this year, where we're really kind of digging back into that. It's kind of a return to a tool that's been available but kind of fell out of favor as we were working through other issues.
Interesting. All right. Thank you. Yeah. That helps a lot.
Okay, you guys have been standing up there for a long time, so I'll keep it short. I have one, this might not be an easy question, but after speaking about this with some families over the past few days, I'm curious about how we are assessing a sense of belonging for our students in an options program, for example, or some of our special education students. So are those students reflected in these numbers, and what does that look like for serving them with that? That might be a Jana question for later, just.
I have options.
For later.
So we carry an options program, and I would say that, yes, the data is reflective of that. We do a push-in model. We have our students going into classrooms. We have our students working alongside their pairs and their peers. And so as we look at the sense of belonging, oftentimes we'll have the teacher work through those questions with them. So when you come in the morning, they actually have a morning time where they actually have the setup and they do goal setting and that work. So they go through those pieces alongside. It might look different than a survey or those pieces, but we're doing those things. We also do our Pride Awards, our Pride tickets. They're getting those things as well. So they're being celebrated alongside their peers as well. So,
Fantastic. Great. Thank you. Oh, great. Yeah, please. Oh, wait, there's more.
I would, in some of the ways we try to engage and involve these kids and help them feel belong may not look the same with other groups. For example, we have the Unified Sports Program, which I think has been a really big success thanks to the collaboration of some adults who are taking that on, and actually some of our student volunteers that are helping support that and really helping our kids feel a sense of belonging there. And we're working hard to integrate as many of these. We want to meet the students where they're at and push them, no matter where they're at. We want to meet them where they're at. And so to have them as involved and engaged in general ed settings as often as possible is something we're really trying to do too. So.
Just add one thing, and I would echo what Mike said. So it starts with these are our students, and then we serve them differently depending on whether we're talking about academics. We try to get them in as many gen ed opportunity classes as possible, and then outside of that, we again want to develop a culture where we have some fantastic 7th and 8th grade students, giving them opportunities to come alongside, mentor, support. One of our options activities on Fridays is they do cooking club and trying to get, again, students into that with those students. So not just pulling them into opportunities with in the gen ed setting, but having some of our students that are in gen ed push into options and serve, support, and come alongside those kids. The other piece would be outside of school is getting them involved in activities, clubs. We have a drama club that we started up at KPMS this year. We have a couple of our students that participate in sports. So again, I think it's creating that sense of belonging. And then, as Ty mentioned, we do use not just a survey, but the same types of questions that our options teacher uses with students to identify, how do you feel? Do you feel like you belong? And what actually does that look like? Because it does look different for a lot of our students. And so it's not really up to the adults to decide what makes you feel like you belong, but to really ask that question and be curious about it.
And I'll just add what Luke said, that we also, as they're talking, they have interests and ideas and things that they want to do too. So we don't just move them into a class. We ask them those questions of what are you interested in and what do you want to do. And so I think that's really relevant and important. And you're hearing that we value them as what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And giving them that opportunity and that choice is just like any other student. So
fantastic. Thank you. Sure.
Okay, I'll go. I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, I know you've heard a lot. So I know this was just said, but all students are gen ed students first. And so the decisions that we make are based around that. And so we, in our homerooms, our ET&T students are spread out across every homeroom. We don't have different homerooms for different students. And we have a cheerleader who's an ET&T cheerleader and is engaged in all those things. So super excited that they are a part of our whole community because they're gen ed students first.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jennifer,
just question, talking about sense of belonging and having a touch point for every child. In the wake of fall sports, knowing that all the middle schools, how many kids went out for fall sports and how many kids got cut. What are your thoughts? Have you had discussions around that, or what are some thoughts that you have on how to, there was 60 plus kids for volleyball and only 24 make the cut. So what happens to those 40 plus kids at every middle school?
I don't know that I'm the expert, but that's a challenge. I mean, it would be really nice to be able to offer something for those kids because, I mean, that was at Harbor Ridge. We had, like 2/3 as many kids not make the team. You know, there's spots for 24 kids. So trying to find a way, and we've looked over the years at trying to develop an intramural program, but then it becomes, you know, how do you run that with gym space and all the other sports that are going on. So, you know, I don't know if we can do like an interim kind of thing with intramurals, something like that, but it comes down to that. But it is, the one thing that's nice, like in the fall with volleyball, is that if a student doesn't make the soccer team, then they can go for they can go out for cross country. But it's like, you know, it's a tough thing. And, you know, and Crest and I met a couple years ago, and with her desire to really bolster the sports program, but along with that comes, you know, a lot of money. It's a big ask, in transportation, all those things. But I think as a middle school group, we would be totally into finding ways that we could support kids and provide an opportunity for more kids to participate.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about the community groups that do want to come alongside. That
Right.
seems like that might be could be a really good fit, natural fit, but.
And volleyball has just exploded out here.
I know, I don't know what's going on, yeah.
Decline.
Yeah, and I think looking at sports like, I mean, when we put in cross-country for 6th graders, they turn out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, all of those kinds of individual sports that don't have a cap, and making sure that we have opportunities. You know, we have a lot of facilities. We have 2 pools. We have facilities that may or may not be used all year long. So I think being creative about that, but we don't have the funding for it. So how do we do that? And I think we'd be open to be thinking about that. What that looks and sounds like. Another piece that we have, which is a huge constraint, more so now than ever, is transportation. How do we get kids to places?
For sure.
So, yeah. We want to do it. We want to increase it. We just don't know how without the funding and the transportation to do that, so.
Well, I will just make these last comments brief. I do wish that sense of belonging was at 100% right now. So that's important. And I'm glad to hear you mention things like our SSOs and the cell phone policy that are making a difference, because that just makes me feel like we as a district are on the right track with changing systems and providing plan and guidance for all of this to come together. So we have the leadership, we have the strategic plan, we've got the district improvement plan, the school improvement plans, all of this, and you can start to see that work making a difference in the lives of our students. That we're not at 100% yet on our academics doesn't bother me, because I know that we can get there. I know that we have the staff to get us there, and honestly, what would be the challenge if we were? I don't know why we would show up if our students didn't need to learn and didn't have challenges. So once upon a time, I think I've shared, I was a GED teacher, and so my students were the dropouts. I had my one most memorable student was a 65-year-old woman who never learned how to do math, and in that moment when things started to click was the most rewarding time as a teacher, and I know that's why our teachers are here. So they've got an opportunity here to shine. So thank you for giving that to them. And I'm going to leave you with one question. So you can do this as a Family Feud one answer style if you want to, if there's some other stuff. Funding aside, what are you missing in support from the district to help you achieve your goals? What can we do to help be part of this process? Funding aside, sorry, and transportation. So Ashley's cringing at the question, but
I honestly, I just think kind of acknowledging the hard work of our teachers and our staff that have put into the wave that has been post-COVID, and just taking on UDL and taking on the cycles, the improvement cycles, and just, I know it's been a lot, and I think just hearing that they're seen, just like our kids, and heard and valued, I think is super important, because they're working super hard. Yeah.
We can do that. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
All right, I have a fun question for you. And I hope that you all, if you don't answer it tonight, you answer it at some point. So I am really, really, really so proud of the work. I was just busy taking notes, and it's important in any system that we have nested plans. So when I first got here, we met with the community, and this board really was thoughtful about this strategic plan. And then you came along and helped plus it and get goals and, you know, all of that. And we have a district plan. And the school improvement plans are all aligned to best practices OSS. So sky is the limit because all of the building blocks are there. And I know that when we started, like, I'm so excited when I hear IABs, CICs, you're talking about fierce data, you're talking about relationships. And I have seen a change with the administrators this year because we are providing a little bit different professional development. You are partnering with AWSP. We have great strength training next week. So excited about that. So my question to you is, and you can answer any of these, there's 3. What is new for you? What's been a little scary? And how is this year different for you as a leader? So you can answer any of the 3, none of the 3, but quick.
Well, I would, you know, you kind of go in the morning thinking you're going to do one thing, and then the day happens, and there's, for example, this morning at 5 o'clock when the thing that's been that we haven't been able to do as a group in a while, and I think part of that is the experience we all went through with COVID and the pandemic, was time to be together and collaborate and be reflective. And the work with the AWSP, that we're committed to coming once a month together as a group and actually being in a reflective space, not a reactionary, you know, what's happening during the course of the day, is refreshing to get back to. And I think it's really important to sustain the work that we're doing. So.
I'm glad you brought up the PD we're doing with AWSP. This is my 15th year as an administrator. I think it's the first year that we've actually had directed professional development for principals, where we get to work on who we are as leaders, who we are collectively, who we are within our own buildings, and within the context of a full district. So what's different? I'm super excited. And I'll be honest, there was a few years I wasn't. But I'm optimistic, I'm encouraged. I come every day feeling like this is gonna be a great day. So that's what's different.
Well, I think probably the biggest difference for me this year is just having been in this seat now in my 2nd year. Last year I was scared to death, horrified, you know, and I thought that I had a pretty good idea of the whole administrative role until I went to the big chair, and I looked down the hallway and I'm like, Mike, and he wasn't there. But thankfully I've got a great teammate in Scott. But just getting along with the PD stuff, being able to come together, learn with each other, and be vulnerable. And I think that's the biggest thing. And that's probably been my biggest area of growth, because I'm the guy that likes to sit and not say anything because I think I'm the only person that doesn't know the answer or is afraid to launch out there. And that's been a really big growth. And the people behind me are amazing, and the amount of time that we spend leaning on each other and just picking up the phone and saying, hey, I got this issue, I need to make a phone call here, and can you just kind of walk me through this, to coach me through this, to you know, play to the strengths that we all have, because we all have strengths, and that's some of the work that we're going to be doing on Tuesday. I don't know, it's just been awesome, and I couldn't be happier to be where I'm at, so thanks.
I think the highlight of this year has been construction ending and surviving the first year in principalship under construction. With that kind of that really heavy, hard burden that our building was feeling, and I don't know, I'm sure Luke and Kim are feeling some of that as well still. But when you come out of that, you can see and start to dig into work differently. And I think that that's something I'm so excited about with my building, is really tackling this fierceness for data, this drive for instruction, and really getting into the place where I can work with teachers and their passion areas. And I always feel like my job as a leader is to ask, like, what do you want to do? Like, what's your passion? Where do you want to grow? And then help find that and help guide that and help support that work. So I'm most excited this year to keep digging into that with my teacher teams and really watching them start to take off with each other around instruction and supporting our kids. So then no more construction.
Yeah, right. What's different is that I have a new office. It's a little bigger, and I have a new teammate. And I can't tell you enough how amazing Kim Kinney is. And I say a team because when Brian mentioned leveraging each other's strengths and working together, it's to a T. Like, what I struggle with, Kim is brilliant at. Kim might struggle with something, and it's like, hey, that's natural to me. And so I'm really excited about not just our admin team, but again, having Mandy Swainson, our success coach, our counselors, our community and schools team. I feel like we have the right resources, and it's really about how are we going to leverage these to make the biggest impact. Construction is a challenge. But again, the word that comes to mind most often throughout the week, as challenging as the job has been and getting used to it in my first year as a principal, is again like hope and a belief in rebranding what it looks like at KPMS and what it means to be a Cougar. So I'm excited for our students and a fresh start.
I don't know if this is new or scary or what, but so this year we've done feeder walkthroughs. So this is an incredible opportunity, and John Helwick has been leading this work for us. But we get the opportunity to go through, like I was at Voyager and Kopachek last week, and so to see what our feeder schools are doing around all of this work, that can be also really vulnerable and super scary, because it's come in and see all the things, and are we doing it or are we not? But it's also an opportunity to see, are we doing it or are we not, and how can we grow and how can we get better? So that's been a tremendous learning opportunity for us as well. Yeah.
Is that everyone? Okay.
I didn't know if we're supposed to answer or not. I would say that one of the things that it's different this year, and coming from the elementary where, you know, you've got grade levels and you're teaching all the subjects to secondary where, you know, it can be isolating because you do math. And so, you know, we've been in conversations where teachers like, I've never been down this hallway before. I've never been to this class before, you know. And so this year when we're talking about this cross content work and specifically teachers going to each other, we have a science teacher working with a math teacher on graphing. What does this look like? What are you struggling with? How do we do this? Vocabulary, like we've talked about before, and like our PE teachers talking about like, hey, we use vocabulary terms all the time. How does that work in your classroom? And so, you know, you get to see this like collaboration that we haven't seen before, and it's really exciting. So, yeah.
I just want to say that a year ago I made a comment to Dan, and I said, where are we on the TPEP? Like, as far as this board, or I hadn't heard anything for years about teacher principal evaluation program. And I have to say that after tonight, I'm 100% optimistic where you're at. So thank you and congratulations. Yeah.
I know that some of you are going on hour 17. So we have one quick favor. If we could have all of you up here for a picture together, and the assistant principals as well, I would love to have a photo op with this amazing team. We get to be in it too, yeah, of course. Principals, you are dismissed. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thank you. Have another slide?
I do, yeah. The whole next report is John and Natalie and I. It's about elective offerings and specialists.
'25 school year. So those conversations and decisions will take place as we get into second semester this year. So I'll call Natalie up and ask her to please present on elementary specialists.
Alrighty, as we move on to the elementary slide, oh, I have the clicker. There we go. All right. So as John just mentioned, these are the specialists for the 23-24 school year and the FTE associated with it. As you can see, music, PE, and STEM are the specialists that are provided at every single elementary school. And while those FTE numbers might be different, it's because we have different sizes of elementary schools. But Minter Creek, for example, is a 0.8 STEM, but she sees all of those grade levels, all of those students within that time. Our schools that are a little bit larger have additional funding for more specialists. And within that, those individual schools have some autonomy within their building leadership teams to decide what that focus is going to be for the additional specialists. So that's where you will see those differences in our larger schools and those building leadership team decisions based on the school's autonomy. With that, I hand it over to Mr. Canton-Wine.
So over the next 90 minutes, I'm going to take you on a tour of our. Sorry, I couldn't get through the sentence. So, as we're thinking about course offerings, each of these is a live link to the course catalog for that school. And just highlighting a couple things off the middle schools, while you'll notice that the format of each of those course catalogs, and that's as presented to the community through live documents and web pages. Although the formats are different, kind of based on sort of how the principal and the building leadership team last year wanted to communicate course offerings for this year, you'll notice if you're comparing those that they're really, really similar. Our middle school elective offerings are more alike than ever. We have music, world language, a STEAM experience for 6th grade, and the same career and technical education offerings at every middle school. Now, if you were to go to one of our middle schools, you wouldn't see the exact same courses offered during the first trimester. These are the courses are going to be consistent across the school year. But if we're thinking about in some cases, it's the same teacher who's teaching app creators as computer science and innovators. And so they're going to have that, they might have one of the classes first trimester and one of the classes second trimester. And in another school, it might be flipped just based on student interest. Student interest will also drive how many sections of each of those we have. And then in addition, the size of the school. Right, so Harbor Ridge is significantly larger than our other 3 middle schools. They have more sections of every course than our other 3 middle schools. And we have, one thing I want to call out is that we have opportunities for students at every one of our middle schools to receive high school credit in both math and in world language. So it's a new thing for us to have Spanish at KPMS. It's pretty exciting. We've got a couple sections running there, and that's a program that we would expect to kind of continue to grow and potentially become in line with where we're at our other sites. On the high school course catalog, if my friends on the other side of this wall can go ahead and click on the Peninsula course catalog, there's a few things that we're going to take a look at. Thanks, guys. So our course catalogs for the comprehensive high schools are all live web documents web pages that are linked from the school's web page. And if you could click on the graduation requirements page or tab there. There we go. So there are 3 high-level graduation requirements for students, and you've heard me say this before, but I'll repeat it again. All students, in order to graduate, need to finish a high school and beyond plan. They need to complete a graduation pathway. For many students, this will be a version of a test, but it might be something else. It might be accessing dual credit coursework. It might be CTE CTE pathway of 2 credits in a sequence. It might be a few other options. And as we scroll further down, we'll see the credit requirements. There we go. Thanks, guys. We also have the credit requirements, Core 24, so the base requirement of the state is that all students will earn 24 credits, and then that number can be adjusted through any number of different ways. But much of a student's experience is really kind of scripted out and identified in a pretty tight set of credits. There are only a few classes that we offer at any one of our high schools that doesn't meet any other requirement besides just elective credit. So over on the right-hand side, guys, if you could click on courses and then electives. Thank you. There we go. So these are our few courses at high school that are elective classes that don't meet another graduation requirement. Otherwise, in each of our departments, you'll see that we've got multiple courses, and a student can choose to take those or not. So we've got things like our instructional practicum, which is when students is somehow doing a little bit more than being a teacher's aide. They're actually helping to instruct in that content area. Leadership, great class, really important. Doesn't actually meet any real core graduation requirements beyond just being an additional credit to earn. But I do want to highlight that we've got flexibility and choice for students in every core content area. So if we click on the courses and then English, PHS is a great example of the types of different offerings that we have even within core content areas. So if we pause scroll just a little bit further down, there we go, that's perfect. That particular view on the screen highlights the range of choices that students have. So they can take an English 10, English 11 class with us that's really focusing on grade level content. It's using an adopted curriculum. It's a great class, great set of classes. They can also be taking advanced placement courses. So courses that potentially earn them college credit based on how they do on a test. Or they could take classes that are UW in the high school. And they could engage in English classes that are earning them credit through the University of Washington, or they could engage in English classes that are potentially earning them credit through Central Washington University. And we have each of those offerings to meet different student needs and different student desires. So some students really look at the course syllabus for a UW English and they say, I don't really see myself in that one, but I see myself in AP Literature. Or I don't see myself in AP Lang, I see myself more in the CWU composition course. And so offering each of those is a continuous balancing act for school teams to figure out where do we have enough students to make sure that we can kind of afford to run that class, that we have enough students that want to take that, and then maintain that offering for students. In some years, as John alluded to, we might not be able to offer a particular course and then be able to bring it back the following year, just depending on student interest. That happens in several of our content areas. And then additionally, every year we have new courses as teachers are thinking about the students they have in front of them. They start thinking about what other courses might a student be interested in. Last week, I got an email from a teacher who's really excited, wants to propose 2 new CTE courses. And so we're kind of looking into what would it take to offer those. Is that something that we think that we could find a way, both facilities-wise and then kind of training-wise, could we offer those? And then figure out how do we integrate those into students' kind of a catalog to choose from. It's not really 90 minutes.
So what I'm understanding is that there's not really electives in the sense of you think of electives in high school. They're all core requirements that.
So there are currently only 3 classes that we have in the Peninsula School District where there's really not another option to get that credit from us other than that one class. It's Algebra 1, Geometry, and Health. We don't currently have other alternate options. We don't currently have a different way to take Algebra 1. We don't currently have a different way to take geometry or to take health. But otherwise, every other course, there's at least one other option. In some cases, like with English 9, it's do you want English 9 or English 9 honors? And in other cases, it's much more, a much bigger difference. So for example, students who are, again, sticking with English as the example, who are in their senior year, they might take UW English 131, they might take English 111, they might take one of the Central Washington University classes, they might take Teacher Academy, or they might take Comparative Media. And all of these are great choices, and they're all addressing that same set of standards.
It's fantastic. And I didn't know that UW High School was at Peninsula now. Is this the first year?
This is the first year that, that they're offering the English 111 and 131.
That's great.
111 is new at both of our sites. 131 had already been at Gig Harbor.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I was just looking at the range of electives in the schools. I think excellent quality of our middle school and high school electives are awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible range, especially at the middle schools. An incredible range given the size of our schools. That's been a tough thing for schools to balance.
Sorry, I was trying to learn the answer myself by reading it, but it's probably faster to ask you. Because I haven't finished. What about PE? Has that changed dramatically over the years, or is it? I know maybe 10 years ago it was very challenging to get the credit you needed if you had to, for some reason, miss PE for an injury or something.
So it has changed pretty dramatically, and probably nowhere more clearly than at PHS. Gentlemen, if we could click on courses and then select the health and fitnesses
There's
piece
tons.
there. Yeah, there's quite a few there. Thanks. And then if we can scroll down just a little bit. So we have quite a few PE classes. As you can see there, there's only one class there that's in that whole list that's not what we would call PE, right? And that's the health class. All of those other courses are PE offerings for students, and quite a few of them are also worth Central Washington University credit. CW is, to my knowledge, the only university partner that we have in the state that offers any credit for PE. They offer 1 college credit for the semester, so it's not a lot of credit, but it's definitely more than 0. And these were largely classes that were already being taught at Peninsula High School that the teacher can continue to do the same thing they were doing before, and the benefit of awarding students with a college credit at the end. Yeah.
I'm just looking at Lifetime Sports. Carol, I'm wondering who teaches that, and please offer that teacher my volunteer time. That sounds amazing.
Aerobic walking.
Yeah.
For college.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well,
lifeguarding for a summer job.
that's That's fantastic. I know. We could probably spend a ton of time digging through the electives.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, that's one of the reasons why we're here, because the courses that were available in the Peninsula School District were so awesome. So,
Nothing like. What?
yeah.
This is really impressive. Wow.
Well, thank you for the work that went into allowing schools to maintain a unique personality, but still allowing giving students an equitable opportunity across, especially our middle schools, so that they have opportunities to advance in high school. So, yeah, well done. Thank you. Okay. Okay. There is no old business this evening, so we're going to move on to item 8, which is new business. We have a couple of first reads of policies on the agenda tonight. So when we're doing a first read, we're not taking action on it, we're just introducing it. The first one is policy 6550. This is new to our school district. This is related to the capitalization threshold for leases and subscription-based information technology arrangements. For more information, please see Ashley Murphy. But basically, this was a recommendation after we completed our audit last year, and I know that Ashley likes to keep the auditors happy, and we like to keep Ashley happy, so we are happy to work on that. Yeah, if we need it, we'll get it. Another policy is 5252, which currently resides in our policy manual as 5515, so this is mainly a renumbering. There is some updated language from WASDA in the model policy, so that might be something that we need to take a look at. If we agree with the updated language, we will work on that before we actually adopt it. The reason we are renumbering it is because of policy number 5515, which is new to us. This is what Carol mentioned earlier. This is related to our workforce secondary traumatic stress and related to our teachers. So Carol and PEA, thank you for your work on that. I know you're working with the district related to the procedure on that as well. So that's very important work, and we are happy to support that. Is there any comment related to the first reads or any of these policies?
For 5252, do you want us to just talk about it tonight, or just do it in an email? How do you want to cover it?
If you have comments, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's been renumbered, so 5252 is employee participation in political activities, and it's, just remind the board this is a WASDA recommendation. We're not beholden to WASDA, so if they say, hey, here's a policy we recommend, you change it in such a way, we can take that under advisement, but it's not. There's an RCW that is referenced, but the reference in RCW 41.06.25 specifically states, Section 1, no person shall solicit on state property or property of a political subdivision of the state any contribution to be used for partisan political purpose, but also not to campaign or do anything like, basically campaign on school property. The new language strikes all of that from the former policy, and it's been replaced with basically a school district employee can run for political office. They just can't campaign for their political office on school grounds. And so I would just like to see us on the final sentence on this first paragraph. It says district property and work time supported by public funds may not be used for political purposes. And I would just like to see, for example, campaigning for a political candidate or political issue during school hours or on school property. Just basically borrow the second part of the second sentence from the stricken paragraph and add it at the end of the last paragraph, or the last sentence of the first paragraph as an example. So for me, I'd like to say, district property and work time supported by public funds may not be used for political purposes. For example, campaigning for a political candidate or political issue during school hours on school property. So that's a change I'd like to.
So basically lift the last sentence from the old one and include it, like make sure that that's reflected in this one.
It's part of the second sentence of the first of the stricken paragraph, and just add it as a for example at the end of the first sentence of the first paragraph. So just to make it a little bit more clear, a little bit more, because it's a little they,
Tanya, okay.
what's that?
So Tanya will add it, the language in.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it's, reasonable to, I mean, the language already exists in the policy, so we can include
Right,
language there. And update, I think, the spirit of what WASDA was doing with their other, update the language.
Right.
It makes sense. Sometimes in trying to actually broaden the scope, it starts to lose meaning.
Right. I just was thinking it would add a little bit of clarity and not be quite so vague.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Okay, so we will have that on for approval, the December meeting, December 5th meeting. Okay, any other comments on policy? All right, do we have board committee reports? Anything to?
Could I just, where we, since I'm hoping to serve on it, the Finance and Audit Committee, where we at
I
progress
think
on
the application window is still open. Do you know when the window closes for application? The 9th. Okay.
Okay.
Yep, we have quite a few interested applicants.
Great. Excellent. Okay.
You say 7 or 70?
Dozens.
A dozen?
Dozens.
I just couldn't hear you because you don't have this microphone, so I thought you said.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear so many people are interested in that, reading the email. And thank you for the reminder so that we can make an announcement here. If you are interested in participating on the Finance and Audit Committee, please go to the district website and fill out the application. So the process is there is a scoring rubric, and then the staff will come up with a slate and do some interviews. Okay. Superintendent report.
Well, what a night. It is 8:40, and I feel more energized, although it was an early morning this morning. I'm going to ask Natalie to come up and speak about secondary elementary, secondary.
Secondary literacy intervention?
Literacy pilots.
I'm going to let my secondary friend, James Cantonwine, speak to secondary.
Okay.
I'm happy to speak to elementary, but I'll let
Well, why don't you speak
James-
about elementary, and then James can speak about secondary
Sounds
real quick.
Good. Okay. Quick update with letters. So we've talked about letters several times. It's professional learning that 80 of our classroom teachers are going through at elementary. It is a year-long professional development. So there are 4 units. There are 8 sessions in every unit. So it's a full year. Like when we put it over a calendar, they will be done the first week of June if everybody follows our pacing guide. So our teachers that are following that pacing guide have just finished unit 1. They're starting unit 2. The whole course is anywhere from 46 to 63 hours long. So this is like heavy, big learning. It's like taking a college level course. The first unit is all about the brain science and how the brain learns how to read, and MRI images, and talking about typically developing brains versus brains that need that instruction in a different way, and it's heavy. So we're excited that they're through Unit 1, sticking with us, and moving on to Unit 2. We also have 24 principals, deputy principals, and district administrators that support elementary that have gone through letters admin training. And on the 25th of October, we had a trainer here in district with us and spent 7 hours just talking through not only that science of reading and how children learn to read, but also what does that look like as a principal in your role of supporting teachers implement those strategies in the classroom. So we're about a quarter of a way done, and we're going to keep on going. So now I'll
Thank you, Natalie.
pass it to James.
I'm back. So you heard the principals talk about a wide range of things they're doing sort of during the day to improve the instruction and the interventions towards improving reading outcomes for kids. These are all great. They're all really important, and we suspect probably not quite enough. Some of the things that you heard really kind of focused on were things like vocabulary, really kind of building that disciplinary literacy, which is really kind of talking about the background knowledge and the knowledge of reading in context. These are incredibly important things. And we know that we have students who get to middle school and they still have word level reading difficulties. They're still having trouble decoding or reading fluently. And so we did hear from Goodman kind of about how they're, from Kovacic, about how they're approaching using the Seeing Stars curriculum during some of that intervention time, which is really looking at that word level reading difficulty. Just today, we started an after-school program using phonics for reading, which is out of University of Oregon. Anita Archer is a retired professor from there that really kind of had this innovative approach to phonics for reading that we have been using in our elementaries in an intervention context, and now using that in middle school as well. We'll be starting a similar after-school program at Goodman over the next couple weeks, and then at Kopachuck and KPMS. The plan is there. It's the finding the right staff member and time and all of that. So as we're kind of moving forward, we're going to collect some information about how much improvement did we see from students in this after-school program. That'll let us know, is phonics for reading the right resource? Do we need to use a different resource? We've got a couple others in mind that we're going to kind of be alternating through. And then if it's working really well, is that one that we want to make sure that we start integrating during the school day? So really using this after-school program as a way to pilot and move quickly through some things. And so staff met at both Harbor Ridge and Goodman to start with and identified who are some of those students that we know have those word level reading difficulties. So it's not just a student who's struggling in ELA, but it's a student who's struggling in a very specific way, and how do we target the intervention to better address those needs. And again, that started today, which is a pretty exciting moment for us.
So when you say that, is it so it's a bit of a piloting for the curriculum as well as?
It's really letting us look at, is this the right resource? Many of those resources that target word level reading difficulties are either not intended for use in middle school, which doesn't mean they won't work. It just means that that's not necessarily the way that the tool was vetted. Or they're intended to be delivered in a one-on-one environment, which is a pretty difficult thing for us to scale, right? We need things that we can do in small groups. We don't necessarily need it to be a group of 30, but we need it to be a small group intervention piece. And we know that during the school day is best. We also know that for some students we can, help support them with an after-school program, particularly when we have activity buses running Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's letting us kind of pilot that tool and pilot that service model, knowing that for some students, during the day intervention will be great, and for some students, after-school intervention is going to be great. We need more tools in the toolbox.
Okay. Are the families aware that this was the idea, was that it was piloting some of this
yes,
stuff?
yeah.
Okay.
So that's all part of the outreach message that went to the families. That's real targeted because, again, not every student who's struggling with reading or struggling with ELA has the same specific needs. And so it was a real targeted outreach to the students that appear to have some of the needs that could be addressed by this particular program.
All right, so that was just a dabble. And I'm sure that we will get updates throughout the year. And I appreciate that. A few things, I just wanted to thank the staff, the teachers that allowed us to come in. I had the opportunity to go on 2 of the instructional walks. One was Harbor Ridge Middle School and PES. Purdy, thank you. It's been a long night. Purdy Elementary, as well as Copa Middle School and Voyager. Staff were just very gracious to allow us in and out to see excellent learning targets and to look at UDL. And so I just always want to thank the staff for being so generous. And it was early. It was like Monday morning. Here we are. So very appreciative of both the principals and the staff. We have a lot of things that have happened over the last few. So KPMS, ribbon cutting. I had the opportunity to also go to the AI instructors planning meeting, which was a half day with Chris and team, getting ready for next week. So next week, we have our Focus on Education, AI in Peninsula School District, on 11/13, that is Monday, at 8:30 a.m. at KPMS. And listening to how the teachers were going to address it and how they were addressing different aspects and the continuation from 6th grade to 12th, and then from kindergarten or pre-K to 5th was just amazing. So I really encourage people to come to this. I think that they will just be, your socks are going to be knocked right off, because the teachers have been very explicit in their planning, and they're really excited to see the public. The second is 11/14, so that's that Tuesday at 11 a.m. at COPA. So I just want to thank the staff for, and just really invite our public in.
Preston, are those a continuation, or are they a repeat of the same
They're
stuff?
completely, I believe that they're different people, and.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can't
so
go
you could-
Monday, it's not like you won't be lost on Tuesday.
No, they don't build on each other. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and we wanted to be equitable and to show off our 2 new middle schools. So there were multiple purposes. Had the opportunity to go to the Communities in Schools fundraiser this last weekend. It was a circus. I haven't seen a circus up close. I haven't seen people like flip and be up in the sky. Yeah, it was crazy. It was really fun, and all the money, goes right back to Communities in Schools. So it was great to see all of our Communities in Schools instructors in all of our schools. It was really a fun time. This Saturday, I will be going to Gig Harbor City Veterans Celebration, and that's Saturday afternoon. So I'm very honored to attend that, and that is at the airport. I just would love to encourage our families, if they have not been to Veterans Day Assembly, there are all different kinds. Basically, they're tomorrow and on Thursday. There's a couple schools that have them in the evening, and so really encouraging people to come and attend that. They're pretty amazing, and I know that our team is trying to get out to all. They're all at the same time, though. They all are at 9 or right at 10 o'clock, so that's problematic. We've started winter sports and clubs, so looking forward to that. Our next board meeting isn't until December 5th, and then we have a follow-up December 12th. So just a reminder, that's kind of a weird schedule, but to get 2 in there. We will be attending WASDA later this month. And I would like to congratulate, the election is out, and this evening, all 3 of our electorates up here have retained your seats. So congratulations to the 3 of you. Well done. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. We now have board discussion and comments. So who wants to start tonight?
I'll start.
Okay.
Watch how succinct I am. Actually, so much of what I was going to say, we covered in SIPs because it had to do with conference week, and what a really wonderful experience that was. And I think one of the things I would encourage us to consider is, at least at conferences are framed as, they're not required, right? So if your child, if a teacher requests one, it's because they believe your child needs a little bit of extra help, but they're not required. But I would just encourage families to just go, right? Like, it's not about necessarily waiting until there's a problem to go in and talk to your teacher. So I don't know if there's a way we can help support, because I know it's a big burden, right, on everybody. But I also know, when I was looking at the sign-up sheets, there's a lot of open slots. So if there's some way to help kind of balance and encourage parents to go in and talk to their teachers, or encourage teachers to say, hey, you may not need the conference, but it's still, it just was so beneficial, because I don't think I would have understood half of what they were talking about in the SIT plans if I hadn't seen that in practice by going in and meeting with the teachers and understanding what that looked like. So, yep, and other than that, excited that CPAC, the Special Education Parents Group, will get going. Thank everybody for their patience as we kind of restructured that format, but I'm really looking forward to the parent education series going. I think, Harbor Ridge, I've been fortunate to go to a few at Harbor Ridge, has this model of their parent education series, and they are so good. They really are wonderful, and that's being driven by what the parents have given feedback that they want to hear. So I know that's the intent with CPAC, and I'm really looking forward to that to get going and encourage all of us to go to one of those. And then picked up spaghetti, went to Meals with Morton, and just a little teaser, excited for you all to have, you'll get a pretty cute little Christmas gift on that if you're not familiar with the Meals with Morton program at Peninsula. I think they're going to do another one in the spring, right? With our, the ET&T and CGP and all of our students with this beloved teacher who had a cooking class, and they've carried that on and made it be a fundraiser. And it's delicious, and it's such a beautiful setting. You can dine in or take out. So yeah, and they have a whole now cooking suite. You can go buy aprons and different cooking utensils online. It's all kind of branded gear, and it all goes back to the program. So it was really cool. That's it.
Well, after tonight, I don't have anything specific, but just say I'm encouraged by the direction that we're going. After hearing all this evening, we did the Kopachuk Middle School ribbon cutting last week, so I really enjoyed going to that and seeing our sixth school being completed and the ribbon cutting for that. And I'm just proud to be able to say again that for the third consecutive year, our school district or our school board was selected as a board of distinction by WASDA, so that's 3 straight. I'm really happy and proud to serve with all of you. So thank you. Congratulations for your election.
Just to reiterate your comments about the AI focus on education next week, I was going to repeat a comment I made at Parent District Council last week. Chris was presenting on this upcoming program, and just to share how excited I am for our district to be really out ahead of this, and instead of being fearful of it or, what's it going to do for kids writing papers and all these things, just to see. I would encourage anyone who can go to these next week, one or the other, just to learn more about what we're doing. But it's really exciting to take something that is coming, instead of being afraid of it, but how do you just embrace it and use it for good. And I was encouraging people, if you don't know anything at all about it, and Chris heard me say this, but this is more for anyone who's still watching the meeting. I had never, Natalie and I were talking about ChatGPT, and I had never used it, and this was recently, and I had to write some remarks for something. So I thought, well, today's the day. And I channeled my adult children, and I thought, because I had no idea how to do it. I have absolutely no idea how to start, so I thought they would say, Mom, Google it. So I Googled how to use ChatGPT. And I would just encourage anybody who is maybe fearful of it or just doesn't care about it. That was kind of my thought, I don't care about ChatGPT. But I did, and I used it to write these remarks, and then I asked it to rewrite and to shape it differently and all this, which you will learn about if you go next week. And it's fascinating what it can do, but also what it can't do, and it really helps you. I would say anyone who's a parent who's listening to just take a few seconds to do it, even if it doesn't interest you personally, to see what is being talked about, and the possibilities are just actually really exciting. It's not something to fear; it's just something to know about and to understand. So that, and then just. Wanted to say, hearing the election results, just that it's a pleasure to serve in this volunteer role with you all, and to give back to the community. So especially for kids, it's something that brings me great joy, and it has moments of challenge, but mostly it's been a great ride. So I look forward to continuing 4 more years of work. And
she just wrote it down. It's
what?
different when you write it.
What's
4
funny?
more.
Yeah. What? Isn't that right? I said 4 more.
Yes, no, we're just laughing because it sounds like a really long time.
Yes, it does. I know. It's like, okay, wait. And then just to say, I often am asked, and I have said many times that we are actually different. And some of this is a guess. We don't discuss all these things because it is a nonpartisan office, and I would suspect do not all vote the same in all things, and we are actually quite different politically speaking. And I think that that is the greatest thing we can bring to the board is to we not only have different jobs, we have different backgrounds, different educations. Our kids are different ages, and we believe in many of the same things for children, but we also believe in many different things. And I often find myself saying to each of these folks up here, I never thought of it that way, or I never thought of your perspective or whatever, and I appreciate that about you all, and I think that is a good thing for the community. So that is all.
Okay. So campaigning for this office gives us a great opportunity to engage with the public, with the parents, with the staff, and I'm just always amazed the staff we have. First off, teachers, the administrators, the bus drivers, we have some great people that are just all about kids. I am so proud to be part of that, part of this. And then going through the campaign process, you get to field a lot of questions. And so it really required me to do some homework occasionally too on some things that we did a couple years ago. I'm getting old, my memory's not there. So it forces me to go back and do a little research. But I'm very proud of this board and what we've done. Again, you heard it tonight, the cell phone policy. These are steps that we took that a lot of school districts were apprehensive about doing, but we boldly went where no man has gone before and did that. We're not afraid to make those steps, and I want to start. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I won't go and repeat what everyone has said, other than thank you for the opportunity to continue serving. It's an honor. And over the last 4 years, I think we can all say that we've had the opportunity to sit with many families and hear some really hard stories and hear some great celebrations, and to be a representative in the most important parts of your life, or some of the most important parts of your life, I think is something I know that I take very seriously, and I can stand here with the utmost confidence and say that every single person up here with me does as well. So in that regard and all, it's a joy to serve with you. It's not always easy. It's not always fun. I mean, your day started at, what, 4 a.m.? So we have gained a deep appreciation for the work that goes into running a school district and serving kids and community. So it is a joy to work alongside all of you. So with that, I won't go into comments of what we've all done and what we're doing, because there's a lot, but I will end tonight's meeting quoting Luke Grunberg, Principal Grunberg. It starts with hope, and well said, and I sincerely hope you all drive home safely and get a good night's rest and are ready to start again tomorrow. Like Preston said, next meeting is going to be December 5th at 6 p.m. here. The following one will be December 12th, and then we will adjourn for the year. And with that, at 9:02 p.m., we are adjourned. Yeah.